Chapter 501. Although Muspelheim was ruled by the flame giant Sir, there were far more than just flame giants living in this hell-like world. Muspelheim's natural environment was a little harsh, but this harsh result was obtained after comparing it to Earth and Asgard. If the scope of comparison was expanded to the entire universe, not only was Muspelheim's environment not harsh, it even exceeded the survival standard by a lot. Big Brother, can we really find the lava fruit today? Beside a river formed by magma, a boy who looked similar to an earthling raised his head and asked his brother who was a head taller than him. Definitely, lava fruit likes to grow next to rivers of fire the most. As long as we are patient, we will definitely find it. Unlike the younger brother who looked very similar to an earthling, the older brother's appearance was not earthling at all. The older brother's height was similar to a 13 or 14-year-old child on Earth, but the color of his skin was dark red, which earthlings did not have. If Rog was present at this time, he would find that this rough, leather-like dark red color was very similar to the color he saw on the infernal demons. Apart from that, there were also cracks on the boy's dark red skin. These cracks were scattered messily on the boy's body, and from time to time, they emitted a magma-like orange-red light. We will definitely find it. After hearing his brother's answer, the younger brother who looked only 7 or 8 years old nodded heavily with an optimistic and determined look on his face. Just as the younger brother was about to continue looking for the lava fruit, he saw 2 shadows moving slowly. As a native born in Muspelheim, the younger brother was sure that the 2 shadows were not flame giants at a glance. Although the flame giant's skin was as black as charcoal and looked like a black shadow from afar, the flame giant did not wear clothes, let alone a black robe. Yes, flame giants did not wear clothes. To some extent, flame giants could be considered a race with a long history and civilization. However, the special nature of their bodies determined that they could not wear clothes like other intelligent races. The flame giants' bodies emitted high temperatures all the time. If it was just high temperatures, it was not particularly troublesome. The real trouble was that the high temperatures emitted by their bodies sometimes directly formed flames on their skin. With such a physique, even if the flame giant wore metal armor, it would be useless, let alone clothes. Brother, 2 exiles are coming. The younger brother's words instantly woke up the older brother who was carefully eating the lava fruits beside the lava river. Not good. Unlike the curious younger brother, when the older brother saw the 2 slowly moving shadows, he immediately carried his younger brother and turned to run. The moment the elder brother carried the younger brother, the cracks on his body burst out with a bright orange-red light. As if he had been injected with adrenaline, he ran wildly in the direction of the village. Those 2 natives seemed to be running away. Aren't you going to chase after them? Dr. Destruction glanced at the 2 children who were running away and said indifferently, "They won't be able to escape." Well, can you not act like you don't care? It's not a shameful thing to be interested in alien life forms. You didn't even let that fire-breathing lizard go. Rog did not give Doom any face and directly exposed his disguise. The 2 figures that the little boy saw were Rog and Doom. To be precise, it was Doom who was wearing a black robe outside the Green Emperor's robe, and Rog who was wearing the Akatsuki's black cloud robe. After being teleported to Muspelheim by the Bifrost, they did not go directly to the flame giant Sir. Instead, like alien tourists, they enjoyed the great rivers and mountains of Muspelheim. Every alien life form may hide the mysteries of the universe. The more you know about alien life forms, the more likely you will be to explore the ultimate mysteries of the universe. Doctor of Destruction Dumb used a very high-sounding reason to explain his overly curious behavior. Yes, you're right. Just as Rog and Doom were chatting, the 2 little boys quickly disappeared from their sight. Their explosive power is not bad, and there are signs of using energy to increase their speed. Doom continued to speak in an indifferent tone. Don't analyze. You'll understand everything when you catch up. They don't know if the 2 of them were unlucky or the flame giants were too lucky. They arrived at Muspelheim for almost an hour. However, apart from the fire-spitting lizard that Doom had dissected and analyzed with magic and the 2 boys who had just escaped, they didn't encounter any other living creatures. There are quite a lot of bones left after the death of creatures, including human bones that look like earthlings. Earth release, super heavy rock technique. Rog used his only flying ninjutsu and flew in the direction of the two boys. After Rog flew into the sky, Professor of Destruction, Doom, also cast a flying spell and followed closely behind him. Although super heavy rock technique is not a ninjutsu that can fly very fast, flying is always faster than running on the ground. Without much effort, the figures of the two little boys reappeared in their line of sight. After flying behind the little boys for more than 10 minutes, a small village appeared in front of them. The dome-shaped houses built with scorched earth were like pieces of black stone sitting on the scorched plain. Judging from the size of the village, this is a small village with at most dozens of families. Byakugan. In order to see the situation in the village further, Rog opened Byakugan. The next second he saw a scene that he didn't expect at all. The dozens of round houses in the village are not the kind of houses he imagined, but the entrance to the underground cave. Under this seemingly barren, scorched plain, there was an incomparably huge karst cave. A huge karst cave that could hold over 1,000 people. Living in the cave are not only humans like the little boys, but also some creatures like giants and magical beasts. It seems that we are lucky this time. Those houses are just the entrance. The real village is underground. The scene inside is very unique. After confirming the real situation of the village, Rog closed Byakugan and accelerated his flying speed. Just as the two little boys were about to step into the village, Rog, wearing a black cloud robe, fell from the sky and stopped in front of them. Without waiting for the two little boys to speak, he cast a spell that he just learned not long ago. Language proficiency. At the very beginning, he planned to bring the universal language translator with him. But later he gave up on this plan. There is no need to use scientific products for things that can be solved with magic. Hello, my name is Rog. I am a human from the Midgardian. Rog didn't say that he is from Earth. For the intelligent creatures in the 9 realms, the name Midgardian or Midgardian would be more familiar to them. After all, what is the name of the 9 realms is the universal education that is common in all 8 countries. The only place that doesn't popularize this is Earth. Just as Rog expected the two little boys to answer him with the same polite attitude, he immediately realized that he was overthinking. His self-introduction caused the vigilance in the eyes of the two little boys to disappear. Instead, it was a kind of contempt and disdain. Looking at the sudden change in the eyes of the two little boys, Rog couldn't help but wonder if there was something wrong with his self-introduction. Just as he was wondering if this is the cultural difference between Muspelheim and Earth, the older little boy put down the younger brother he was carrying. Then, like a cheetah, he pounced on Rog, his small hands directly attacking his neck. Facing the little boy's sudden attack, Rog casually raised his right hand. Just as the little boy's hands were about to touch his neck, he chopped the little boy's head with a hand knife. Bang! Although he only used less than 1/10 of his strength, Rog's hand knife was still a thunderous blow that the little boy couldn't withstand. The moment he was hit by the hand knife, the little boy was completely knocked out, and then came into close contact with the ground. After knocking out the little boy, Rog stepped over his body and came to the younger boy. This time, his face was not as kind as before, and he asked in a cold tone, "What I ask, you answer, do you understand?" Bullying children is not Rog's hobby. However, at this time, he didn't think the two little boys in front of him were children. His standards for judging children are somewhat different from others. If it's just that they are young, he won't think of them as children. After all, there are some so-called minors who can do demonic acts that adults can't do. And judging from the attack just now, the boy who was knocked out by him has obviously undergone professional combat training. Understood. After seeing his brother being knocked down in an instant, the boy who looked similar to an earthling finally didn't have the contempt and disdain he had just now, and he answered with trepidation. "Where are you from? What are your names? What's the matter with the village below?" Rog asked like a police officer interrogating a prisoner. "My name is Didier, and he is my brother, Mayor. I grew up here. The village has always been here. It existed before I was born." Didier quickly answered, his face full of fear. Wasn't the Midgardians the weakest existence in the 9 worlds? This Midgardian in front of him is so scary. Chapter 502. Is he your brother? Do you have the same parents? With the presence of Thor and Loki, Rog had a little distrust towards the so-called brothers. Especially when the 2 brothers are not the same type. Mayer is my brother, my blood brother. Didier, who was trembling just now, suddenly became very excited, clenched his fists, and shouted with all his strength. At this time, Didier was like a cat whose tail was stepped on, showing his horror with an aura that was not scary. Wake your brother up, we are going to your village. Rog's left hand unbuttoned the black cloud robe, pointed to the unconscious Mayer lying on the ground, and finally put his left hand on the middle button of the robe. Although the black cloud robe has 2 sleeves, he did not put his left hand into the sleeve, but put his left hand inside the robe. The left hand is not wearing the sleeve, but the right hand is wearing the sleeve. He learned this method from an Uchiha clansman who did not want to reveal his name. Although it looks a bit improper, it has a unique charm. Under Rog's gaze, Didier came to Mayer's side and gently patted his face. Didier's concern for Mayer doesn't seem to be fake, but it's really hard to believe that they are blood brothers just by looking at their appearance. While Didier was trying to wake up Mayer, Doom, who was floating in the air, slowly landed next to Rog. Did you get any useful information? Doom glanced at Didier and Mayer, then turned to Rog and asked. No. Under Didier's gentle patting, Mayer, who was knocked unconscious by Rog, slowly woke up. However, when he saw Rog and Doom standing behind Didier, he pulled Didier behind him and watched Rog and Doom with great vigilance. Boy, I don't like people looking at me like that. If you continue to look at me like that, I will dig out both of your eyes. Although he was just knocked unconscious by Rog, Mayer's eyes were still full of contempt and disdain. After being warned by Rog, Mayer put away his contempt and disdain and looked at the 2 with a cold face. Lead the way. People like Mayer, at first glance, lack of social punishment. Not surprisingly, he also has a serious racial discrimination mentality. Although he was unwilling in his heart, Mayer didn't completely lose his mind. Without saying a word, he pulled Didier and walked towards the entrance of the village. Under Mayer's lead, Rog and Doom walked into the winding entrance passage. However, just as they were about to walk out of the entrance passage, Mayer, who was walking in the front, picked up Didier, and the cracks on his body once again emitted a lava-like red glow. In the blink of an eye, Mayer rushed more than 10 meters away. I'll leave it to you this time. Rog handed the matter of stopping Mayer to Doom. But Doom didn't have any objections to this and agreed. He silently snapped his fingers. Hold human. A faint green light flashed on Mayer's body. Mayer, who was running wildly, was instantly frozen. Under the effect of inertia, he maintained his running posture and rolled forward. Didier, who was in his arms, also rolled forward with him. Hold Human was a control spell that was specifically used against humanoid creatures. It could paralyze the target and make them unable to move. Targets who were hit by the human immobilization spell could remain conscious and breathe normally, but they couldn't speak or do anything. Similar spells included Hold Animal, Hold Monster, Group Hold Monster, and Group Hold Human. There were detailed records of these spells in the magic book, Bewitching School of Magic, from beginner to expert. When Doom used Hold Human, a series of relevant information involuntarily appeared in Rog's mind. Because the effect of these Hold Jutsu was similar to his ninjutsu, Hold Jutsu, he didn't learn these spells. But this didn't stop him from recognizing this spell at a glance. After using Hold Human to easily stop Mayer who was trying to escape, Doom, who was wearing a metal mask, stepped in front of Mayer step by step and lifted him up. Just when Doom decided to punish the disobedient Mayer a little, several adult men with the same skin color as Mayer appeared at the end of the passage. Before the younger ones could be taught a lesson, the older ones had already appeared. The few adult men who had just appeared only glanced at Mayer who was being lifted up by Doom. The cracks on their bodies lit up with lava-like radiance, and then they ran towards Doom madly. In less than 2 or 3 seconds, they arrived in front of Doom and fiercely pounced on him like a pack of wolves. Magic missile. More than 10 bright white magic missiles flew out in an instant and hit these men like cannonballs, sending them flying. Before these men landed, Doom aimed his left hand at them and added another evocation spell. Lightning Chain. Silver-white lightning rushed out of Doom's left hand and instantly hit the man closest to him. After the first target was hit, the dazzling lightning jumped to the second target at an astonishing speed. Then the third, the fourth, the fifth. Although Doom was a mage, he was definitely not the kind of mage who would be in danger when someone got close to him. On the contrary, he was extremely good at this kind of close-range spell-casting battle. With only 2 spells that weren't very advanced, Doom easily repelled the men who tried to attack him and left them with an incomparably deep impression. Although the lightning chain didn't take their lives, there were obvious scorch marks where the lightning hit. We don't want to kill anyone yet. Don't try to test our patience. With that, Doom loosened his right hand and let the immobile Mayor fall to the ground awkwardly. Then he removed the immobilization spell on Mayor. After this small episode, Rog and Doom finally arrived at the village located in the underground karst cave. However, at this time, it was not only the 2 brothers Mayor and Didier who were leading the way, but also the adults who were casually taught a lesson by Doom. The arrival of Rog and Doom quickly caused a sensation in the village. Especially after knowing that the 2 of them came from the atrium, the villagers in the village looked at them like they were looking at rare animals. It didn't take long for them to see the person they wanted to see, the village chief of this strange village. Asgard? After seeing the village chief in a gray robe, Rog was stunned. He didn't expect that the village chief of this strange village would be in Asgard. Although there were many races in the universe that looked similar to Asgard, such as Warner Protoss and Earthlings, he was 100% sure that the village chief standing in front of him was an Asgard. To be precise, he was an old Asgard. I'm Abhijit, the village chief of this small village. May I know why you 2 are here? Abhijit glanced at the Mayor brothers and the injured villagers behind Rog and said with a kind face, "You're in Asgard. Why are you in Muspelheim?" As an Earthling who once lived in Asgard, Rog was very clear about the hometown plot of these Asgard people. For the Asgard people, Asgard was not only their birthplace, but also their eternal resting place. If there was no special reason, these Asgard people would never settle down in other places. Have you been to Asgard? Abhijit didn't answer Rog's question. Instead, he asked Rog. We've been there for a while. They did stay in Asgard for a while, but the time Rog spent there was not the same as the time Durham spent there. The prophecy really came true. Asgard really sent a messenger! Obviously, Abhijit directly misinterpreted Rog's meaning and said loudly to the surrounding villagers with a happy face, "What's wrong with this guy? Does he have Alzheimer's?" Looking at Abhijit, who was instantly excited and inciting the villagers' emotions, Rog frowned slightly. This village was getting stranger and stranger. The location was strange, the villagers were strange, and the village chief was also strange. When the surrounding villagers were excited, Abhijit whispered to Rog and Durham, "Sorry, I've caused a misunderstanding. If you don't mind, we can go to the village hall to talk in detail." Although they didn't know what Abhijit was planning, Rog and Durham didn't have the slightest worry. When the villagers were watching them, they also used their own methods to confirm the strength of this village. How should they put it? From the perspective of the 2 of them, this village was an existence that could be completely destroyed with a wave of their hand. Even if only one of them made a move, they could completely destroy this village in a few minutes and end the lives of all the villagers. Because of this strength that far exceeded the village's resistance, they didn't care at all whether Abhijit was plotting something. A few minutes later, they came to the village hall that Abhijit mentioned. From Abhijit, they learned the reason for the establishment of this village and what the so-called messenger of Asgard was all about. To put it simply, this was a misunderstanding full of coincidences. But in order to make this misunderstanding a reality, Abhijit spent the rest of his life in this small village called Dawn. Chapter 503. More than 2,000 years ago, Abhijit, who was in his prime, was a somewhat famous blacksmith in Asgard. Although he was only a blacksmith, he was a blacksmith with a dream. Simply put, he wanted to create a weapon like Thor's hammer Mjolnir or Gungnir so that he could become a divine blacksmith on par with the Dwarf King. In order to fulfill this dream, he went to Nidavellir, the kingdom of the dwarves, to Vanaheim, which was ruled by the Vanir gods. He even sneaked into Jotunheim, the kingdom of the frost giants. Of course, he also went to Earth, which was called Midgard. However, when Abhijit traveled to all the countries in the 9 realms, he discovered a truth that he should have understood long ago. What determined a person's future was not hard work, but innate talent. As an ordinary Asgard, Abhijit did not have the innate talent for forging like the dwarves, nor was he one of those lucky people who could awaken divine power. After putting in all his effort, he still could not break through his own limits. Abhijit despaired. He closed his blacksmith shop that was doing well, said goodbye to his family and friends, and left Asgard alone. After pursuing the dream of being a divine blacksmith for half his life, in the end, he found that it was just his own wishful thinking. Disheartened, Abhijit became a wanderer and began to wander aimlessly in the universe. If the development of the matter ended here, then Abhijit's experience could at most be regarded as the helpless life of an ordinary person. However, fate, the little guy that people loved and hated, obviously did not intend to let Abhijit go so easily. According to Abhijit himself, at that time, he was working as a bounty hunter on a backward planet that he forgot the name of. Although Abhijit's talent in weapon forging was not outstanding, it was undeniable that he was an Asgard. An Asgard who had undergone combat training from a young age and whose physical fitness surpassed most of the races in the universe. With these 2 points, he became a relatively strong bounty hunter on that planet. Just when Abhijit planned to end his unaccomplished life as a bounty hunter on that planet, he received a mission that completely changed his life. The mission was very simple. It was to escort a group of people who claimed to be fire elves to Muspelheim. These fire elves said that they were the descendants of the Alfheim elves and the Muspelheim flame giants, so they wanted to go to the flame giant kingdom, Muspelheim. Abhijit did not believe a single word of the fire elf statement. Although he was only a blacksmith in Asgard, it did not mean that he did not have a good general education class. It was impossible for Alfheim's elves and Muspelheim's flame giants to produce mixed-blood descendants. Although they were all humanoid creatures, the reproductive isolation between them was even greater than the reproductive isolation between birds and fish. Although Abhijit was dismissive of these fire elves, he was very satisfied with the reward given by the fire elves. The task reward, the Asgard the flame giant flame giantess tempted by the reward, Abhijit accepted the task of escorting the fire elves to Muspelheim. He knew where Muspelheim was, and these fire elves did not offend anyone, so there was no so-called pursuer. So for him, as long as he could get a spaceship that could carry these fire elves, he could easily complete this task and then use the reward from the fire elves to live a life of idleness. The mission went smoothly. With the help of Abhijit, the fire elves arrived at Muspelheim, the place they had been dreaming of. At this point, his mission should have been over. However, just when he was satisfied with the reward from the fire elves and left Muspelheim, an accident happened. The fire elves who had just arrived at Muspelheim did not even build a temporary camp before they began to excitedly look for the flame giants. Not sure if it was fate, but not far from where the spaceship landed, there happened to be a group of idle flame giants. The fire elves saw the flame giants of their dreams, and then they became the flame giants' food and playthings. Like Abhijit, these flame giants did not think that the fire elves were their descendants. So they, who had nothing to do, personally broke the unrealistic fantasy of these fire elves. They were slaughtered like prey and devoured like food. These fire elves had just seen the same kind of people of their dreams, and a nightmare came to them. Abhijit, who planned to pilot the spaceship away from Muspelheim, saw this scene on the spaceship. Not sure if it was the tragic experience of the fire elves that made Abhijit think of his past, but he made a decision that was not in line with a bounty hunter, but was very much in line with the Asgard people. He saved the fire elves who had died more than half of the fire elves. At the cost of being seriously injured and completely destroying the spaceship, he saved these fire elves alone. The spaceship was destroyed, and Abhijit and the remaining fire elves were completely trapped in Muspelheim. Relying on the unreasonable physique of the Asgard people and the careful care of the fire elves, Abhijit gradually recovered. The instant destruction of hope and the grief brought by the death of a large number of people completely changed these surviving fire elves. After seeing these lively fire elves become lifeless, Abhijit made the decision that changed his life. He wanted to stay in Muspelheim and build a small country for these fire elves. In order to rekindle the hope of these fire elves, he used his identity as an Asgard to tell a small lie. As long as we can build a camp here, when Asgard knows that this camp was built by his people and other races, Asgard will send a messenger to make the camp belong to Asgard's territory. As long as we can get Asgard's approval, we can build a kingdom of fire elves in Muspelheim, a homeland that truly belongs to the fire elves. With the advantage of asymmetrical information, Abhijit successfully fooled the fire elves and planted a seed of hope in the hearts of the fire elves. In fact, Abhijit's statement was not completely wrong, but he modified a key point. Asgard would indeed protect the camps built by his people in other countries. But the premise was that there must be a large number of Asgard people in the camp. There were only a few Asgard people in the camp, and it was impossible to get Asgard's approval. So what Abhijit provided to the fire elves was an impossible hope from the beginning. Asgard would never send an army to Muspelheim for Abhijit and a group of people who claimed to be fire elves. It was even more impossible for him to build a so-called kingdom of fire elves for them. Under this false hope, Abhijit and the fire elves began to build a village called Dawn little by little. In order to let these fire elves have a certain ability to protect themselves, Abhijit also began to teach the fire elves the knowledge of the 9 worlds and fighting skills. In the following days, they also rescued some creatures that had inexplicably wandered to Muspelheim, such as the giants and monsters outside. It's a good experience, but you should know that the false will always become true. The two of us are not the so-called messengers of Asgard, and it's impossible for us to help the fire elves build a kingdom. Rog expressed sympathy for Abhijit and the fire elves' experience. However, this doesn't mean that he will help these fire elves. It's true that the false can't become true, but you will definitely help us. Abhijit didn't care about Rog's rejection, and his face still maintained a happy expression. Is that so? I'm a little curious. Where did you get your confidence from? Abhijit's reaction was beyond Rog's expectation, but it also aroused his curiosity. Because you are the 4th Hokage, Rog-sama? After hearing Abhijit suddenly say the words, 4th Hokage, Rog's face instantly sank and his whole person became extremely vigilant. Abhijit's words not only made Rog vigilant, but also Doom, the Doctor of Destruction, was also on full alert. Although Rog introduced himself in front of Didier, he didn't say that he was the 4th Hokage. How do you know that I'm the 4th Hokage? Answer me well. This answer directly determines your life and the safety of others. Looking at Rog's face suddenly became serious, Abhijit quickly waved his hand, indicating that he had no malice. I have no malice, I just want to make a deal with you. As for why I know that you are the 4th Hokage, you will understand after seeing Kornj and Mick. Kornj and Mick? Rog suddenly felt like he heard these two names somewhere. Kornj, Mick, you all come in. The closed door of the villagers' hall was pushed open, and 2 people appeared in the sight of Rog and Doom. The moment he saw these 2 people, Rog finally knew where he heard their names. Sokka Planet, Champions Arena. Kornj was a 2-meter-tall Kronan warrior. Beside him, Mick was a midget bug with 2 knife-wielding hands. Of course, this dwarf is from a human's point of view, but from an insect's point of view, Mick is a giant. After seeing Kornj and Mick, Rog shrugged and sighed helplessly. Fate, this little guy, is starting to mess around again. Chapter 504. Clunan Gladiator Kornj and Knife-Wielding Insect Mike. Although they weren't famous gladiators on soccer, they still had their own fame. To be precise, it was their fame in the lead-in match. Before the start of every championship match on soccer, there would be a lead-in match to arouse the audience's emotions. Although the danger level of the lead-in match was not as high as the free-for-all or the team free-for-all, it was definitely not a game of house. It wasn't easy to make a certain amount of fame and survive in the lead-in match. Rog vaguely remembered that before his fight with Ronan, the one responsible for the lead-in match was this Clunan gladiator called Cornge. How did you get out of soccer? Looking at Cornge and Mike, who were still alive and kicking, Rog asked curiously. We robbed Gao Tianzuan's spaceship, passed through the Devil's Lair, and then came here. Although the environment here isn't very good, it's still much better than my hometown. After all, my mother and her little boyfriend won't appear here. Kernger gave a simple explanation. Cornge and Mike's spaceship fell into the lava river, and we rescued them. They told me that you are the fourth Hokage. Abhijit added. The two of them may explain why you know that I am the fourth Hokage, but you still haven't explained why you were so sure that I would make a deal with you. Although Abhijit's strength wasn't very good, just at the level of an ordinary Asgard gladiator, but for some reason, Rog always felt that he wasn't that simple. Rog didn't doubt Abhijit's experience, but he suspected that he was hiding something else. You go out first and close the door on the way. Abhijit didn't directly answer Rog's question, but let Cornge and Mike leave the village hall first. After Cornge and Mike left and closed the door, Abhijit slowly said, although I don't know what you want to do in Muspelheim, I think that with your outstanding strength, you won't refuse the opportunity to continue improving your strength. After that, Abhijit took out a small metal box from his arms, and then solemnly handed the box to Rog. Open it and take a look, you won't be disappointed. Roger glanced at Abhijit, who had a serious expression on his face, and took the metal box from his hand and opened it. Inside the box was a strange jelly that looked like magma, but it wasn't completely solidified. Rog and Doom were both well informed, but they still didn't recognize what this thing was. Explain it? On this strange jelly, Rog, Abhijit, jelly, this is plain origin energy, Muspelheim's origin energy. Abhijit suppressed the excitement in his heart and pretended to be calm as he spoke. But as soon as he finished speaking, Doom opened his mouth to deny his statement. Impossible. This can't be the origin energy of the realm. The origin energy of the realm can only appear in the form of materialization when the realm is about to collapse. The current Muspelheim definitely can't have materialized origin energy of the realm. While Doom was refuting Abhijit, Rog quickly recalled the information about the origin energy of the realm in his mind. The origin energy of the realm was a term used in the field of magic. To put it in simpler terms, it could be understood as the core energy of a planet or the source of life of a planet. In short, this was one of the most precious existences of a planet or plane. You are all-powerful mages, you have enough ability to distinguish whether this is the origin energy of the realm or not. It won't do me any good to lie about something that can be easily exposed. Abhijit didn't care about Doom's refutation and still firmly believed that the jelly in the box was the origin energy of the realm. Whether this is the origin energy of the realm or not, I will confirm it later. If this is true, what do you want to trade it for? Rog closed the box and asked Abhijit. A kingdom that belongs to the Fire Elves. Whether it's in Muspelheim or somewhere else, it's fine. As expected, Abhijit gave an answer that Rog expected. No problem, as long as this is the origin energy of the realm, I can help you fulfill this wish. For Rog, it wasn't difficult to help Abhijit fulfill this wish. Wasn't it just a kingdom that belonged to the Fire Elves? It was a piece of cake. If these Fire Elves didn't like Muspelheim, he could also give them a piece of land on Tatooine and let them build their own kingdom. Furthermore, on Tatooine, no one would come looking for trouble with them. After all, it was Rog's private territory. Mastering a planet of your own, that's how rich you are. After agreeing to Abhijit's conditions, Rog didn't hesitate and directly began to confirm the authenticity of the origin energy of the realm. When he used magic to confirm the authenticity of the origin energy of the realm, Doom stood aside without saying a word, neither speaking nor planning to help. After a dazzling operation, he finally completed the confirmation of the authenticity of the origin energy of the realm. This is indeed the origin energy of the realm, but I want to change the way of the transaction. After that, Rog handed the metal box back to Abhijit, and then summoned a commission scroll. I have obsessive-compulsive disorder, and I like to complete important transactions in the form of commission. The reward is the origin energy, and the content of the commission is to help the fire elves build their kingdom. If there is no problem, you can write the commission now. Although this kind of commission can't get too many ninja coins as a reward even after the system's judgment. But no matter how small the reward is, it's still ninja coins. Rog has never minded taking advantage of the system. Although Abhijit didn't know why Rog had to complete the transaction in the form of commission, since Rog said so, he had to follow Rog's obsessive-compulsive disorder. As for Doom, he was directly ignored by Abhijit. Abhijit had never heard of Doom's name at all, and compared with Rog, Doom with a metal mask seemed a bit unserious. It didn't take long for Abhijit to finish writing all the content on the commission scroll. Content of commission: help the fire elves build their kingdom. Commission status: incomplete. Commission reward: 20 ninja coins. Perhaps the difficulty of the commission was too low, or maybe the system noticed his idea of taking advantage of the system. The system gave a commission reward that was lower than he imagined. I'll accept your request. Chapter 505. After officially accepting Abhijit's commission, Rog accepted the plain origin energy in advance. Arrange 2 rooms for us, and the commission will be completed for you within a week. Abhijit had no objection to the time Rog gave to complete the commission. They had waited for more than 2,000 years, and waiting for another week was not a problem. Under Abhijit's arrangement, Rog and Doom stayed in this village called Dawn as Asgard's emissary. They did not expose Abhijit's lie, but acquiesced to the identity that Abhijit had arranged for them. Anyway, for them, no matter what identity they had, it would not affect their next plan. Time passed in the blink of an eye. Unknowingly, Rog and Doom had stayed in the village for 3 days. During these 3 days, Rog did not leave the room he lived in and digested the plain origin energy in peace. Plain origin energy was the most important and basic energy of the plane. To some extent, the plain origin energy could even be called the source of all things. As long as it was matter and life that existed in the plain origin energy could evolve. To put it simply, the plain origin energy was omnipotent. Although there were many uses for the plain origin energy, Rog did not use it to do strange things. Instead, he used it directly to strengthen his physique. Although his usage was somewhat wasteful, he didn't care about it. Although he knew some magic now, he could be considered a pretty good mage. But he would not forget that he was a ninja who relied on ninjutsu, genjutsu, and taijutsu. Therefore, instead of using the plain origin energy as a magic material or other materials, it was better to use it directly to strengthen his body. Under the nourishment of the plain origin energy, his sage body, which had not significantly improved for a long time, began to improve rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye. When the plain origin energy was completely digested by him, he had an accurate perception of his sage body that he had never had before. 80%. His sage body was developed to 80%. For a long time, he could only rely on his experience and intuition to estimate the extent to which his sage body had been developed. From there, he could calculate the gap between himself and Hashirama. Now, after absorbing the planar origin energy, he could finally accurately determine the degree of development of his immortal body. Although 80% wasn't particularly high, considering the amount of chakra he had, Rog could still accept this result. His current chakra was only at 6 tails, and he was only 3 tails away from the 9-tailed beast. But in reality, the amount of chakra he had now was only 1/3 of that of a complete 9-tailed beast. The chakra measurement unit used by the system was based on the young 9-tailed chakra, not the complete 9-tailed chakra. After he exchanged the in-QB, he would increase his sage body development to 100%, which is equivalent to Hashirama's sage body. Then, he could start to think about Hashirama's Shartanra. How much chakra Senju Hashirama had was an unsolved mystery. The only thing that was certain was that Hashirama once said that Naruto, Minato, and the complete QB had the same amount of chakra as him. So, Rog still had a long way to go before he could catch up with Hashirama's chakra. At the very least, he had to develop his sage body to 100% before he could start to think about this problem. After all, Hashirama also had the sage body and practiced for decades before he had the unreasonable chakra. While Rog digested the commission reward given by Abhijit in advance, Doom, the Doctor of Destruction, was not idle and carried out his own research. Doom conducted a detailed study of these fire elves, who claimed to be the hybrid descendants of the flame giants and the elves, from their life form to the internal structure of their bodies. Although his research content was a little bit more, he did not conduct too many inhumane experiments on these fire elves, nor did he use dissection and other means. The fire elves in the village were not very willing to cooperate with Doom's experiment, but after knowing that Rog and Doom would help them build a fire elven kingdom, they became extremely cooperative. Even Mayer and the adult fire elves, who had been taught a lesson by Doom, joined Doom's experiment without hesitation. After coming out of his room, Rog did not look for Doom, who was addicted to the experiment, but found Cornge and Mike. As he expected, although Gao Tianzuan didn't win against Thanos and couldn't stop Thanos' attack, Gao Tianzuan still left Sokka Star alive. According to Cornge, when they robbed Gao Tianzuan's private spaceships, he saw Gao Tianzuan leaving the hangar with the strong female guard Topaz in another spaceship. Although Cornge didn't know where Gao Tianzuan and Topaz went, he saw something very interesting. He saw Thanos. To be precise, he saw Thanos whose armor was beaten into tatters. Rog clearly remembered that when he fought with Thanos, Thanos' armor was intact. Even when he used the portal magic to take Hulk away, Thanos' armor was still intact. Although Sokka Star advocated gladiators and had many gladiators, none of them could cause damage to Thanos and break his armor. This was something that even Rog couldn't do, let alone those gladiators who were far weaker than him. So there was only one conclusion, that is, the person who broke Thanos' armor was Gao Tianzuan. Apart from Gao Tianzuan, Rog couldn't think of anyone else in Sokka Star who could have such strength. Although Gao Tianzuan looked a little improper, he was a member of the universe's Council of Elders anyway. It was normal for him to have some unknown strength. After ending the conversation with Cornge, Rog came to Doom's room, which was not much different from a laboratory. Do you have anything else to deal with here? If not, I plan to meet with Surtur as soon as possible. According to the original plan, they should not go to the flame giant Surtur for trouble until a few days later. Basically everything that needs to be studied is almost done. Now it's okay to go and see Sir. Doom, who was engrossed in writing something, turned his head and glanced at Rog, and answered casually. Then let's set off today. Rog didn't know if it was his own illusion, but after learning the news about Gao Tianzuan and Thanos from Cornge, he always felt that something would happen, and it was a very serious kind. So he decided to deal with Surtur's affairs as soon as possible, and then return to Earth to see Sorcerer Supreme. Chapter 506. Are you sure the flame giant Surtur is in this underground cave? Professor Doom, who was wearing a black robe, asked in disbelief. I'm 90% sure. Although Rog was the one who confirmed the location, he wasn't particularly sure himself. After all, he had been wrong twice in a row. You said the same thing the last 2 times. After hearing Rog's uncertain answer, Doom complained. Even if I'm wrong this time, it's only a tie with you. You said before that your divination would never go wrong, but you still got it wrong 3 times in a row. Rog wanted to get Surtur's location from Abhijit, but unfortunately, Abhijit knew nothing about it. Although Abhijit had lived in Muspelheim for more than 2,000 years, he and the fire elf had been trying their best to stay away from the flame giant in the past few days, so it was impossible for them to inquire about Surtur. Although he didn't get the information he wanted from Abhijit, Doom confidently said that he could solve the problem. Then, he got the location wrong 3 times in a row. After failing 3 times in a row, Doom refused to continue the divination no matter what, so the task of confirming Surtur's location was handed over to Rog. Because he had never seen Surtur and didn't know what his life signal looked like, Rog could only use the simplest and most crude method to find Surtur. First, he activated Chakra's sensing ability to the extreme and selected the flame giant with the highest life force in the range of his sensing ability. Then, he used quantum teleportation and brought Doom to the flame giant. After a round of friendly communication, he learned the general location of Swordplay from the flame giant. After confirming the approximate location, he once again performed quantum teleportation and directly teleported himself and Doom over. After repeating the process twice, he and Doom arrived at the current place. I should have come to the right place this time. Even though the life force of the guy inside isn't particularly high, his life force is obviously different from the flame giants from before. If I'm not mistaken, the most powerful flame giant inside should be Sword. In order to avoid being slapped in the face again, before entering the underground karst cave, Rog once again used the chakra sensing technique to sense the situation in the karst cave in detail. I hope so. Still, Doom did not quite trust Rog's perception. Let's make things clear first. Surtur's sunset light sword and crown are mine. Everything else is yours. If you want to conquer Muspelheim, you can, but you have to do it yourself. If you need my help, then we'll split the territory in half. This was an agreement that Rog and Doom had reached before they set off. The reason why he repeated the statement was to avoid a dispute over the ownership of the spoils later. Don't worry, I never go back on my promises. I'll never snatch the sunset light sword and Surtur's crown from you. Compared to Rog, who had a clear goal, Doom's trip to Muspelheim this time was much simpler and pure. Simply put, he came with the mentality of increasing his knowledge and expanding his research field. Although Doom had some achievements in the field of magic, he was still unable to further expand his gains in the field of magic because he was on Earth. For example, if he were an Asgard mage, he could definitely improve his research and strength in the field of magic by traveling to different planets and countries. In this regard, Abhijit was a very typical example. Abhijit did not have outstanding talent in forging, but he could find opportunities to improve his forging skills by going to the dwarven country of Nidavellir or the frost giant country of Jotunheim. This method was very feasible for an Asgard like Abhijit, or for other people who had also started the era of the universe. However, for Dr. Doom, who was on Earth, this was an opportunity that could only be encountered by chance. The reason why he agreed to go to Muspelheim with Rog was that he valued this opportunity to go to other planets. Of course, establishing a good relationship with Rog was also a very important reason. After confirming that Doom would not have any ideas about the Sunset Light Sword and Surtur's crown, Rog summoned the Kusanagi sword from the summon scroll he carried with him, as well as the thunder fan that he had not used for a long time. After Odin's death, the enchantments on the flying Thor kunai and the thunder fan disappeared. However, Rog, who was already a mature mage, added the flying and summoning enchantments on the flying Thor kunai and the thunder fan to make up for the regret caused by Odin's death. Let's go, let's meet the legendary flame giant Sir. After that, Rog took the lead and walked towards the underground cave. In his memory, Surtur without the eternal fire couldn't even beat the pre-awakened Thor. However, he still didn't dare to underestimate the ruler of Muspelheim. After experiencing so many things that didn't match his memory, he wouldn't continue to use the situation in his memory to infer Surtur's strength. Being careful and cautious was a professional quality that a qualified ninja must have. More importantly, he didn't want to fail in the hands of an enemy like Surtur. The underground cave where Surtur was located was far larger than the previous Dawn village. After walking quickly for more than 10 minutes in this underground cave, Rog and Doom saw the target of their trip, Surtur. It was different from what they had imagined. Surtur seemed to have anticipated their arrival. At this time, Surtur was sitting on a huge stone throne, looking down at the two uninvited guests, Rog and Doom. Something's not right. Doom, who was standing next to Rog, suddenly said, "Leave Surtur to me, you take care of the others." Rog glanced around and said calmly to Doom. However, just as he finished speaking, a sense of danger suddenly surged in his heart. Something's wrong. The intuition of danger in his heart suddenly made Rog extremely vigilant. Just as he was considering whether to activate the Byakugan to confirm the surrounding situation, a familiar figure walked out from behind Surtur's throne. Damn it! Why is she here? The person who walked out from behind Surtur's throne was none other than the princess of Asgard, Thor's sister, the goddess of death, Hela. Chapter 507. Rog had imagined many scenarios of fighting Surtur in his mind. However, he did not expect to meet the goddess of death Hela in Muspelheim. What's wrong with this big sister? Is she planning to stay in the 9 realms? Last time, it was Jotunheim, the kingdom of the frost giants. This time, it was Muspelheim, the kingdom of the flame giants. The universe is so big. Doesn't she want to go to other places? Although Professor Doom did not know the goddess of death Hela, he knew at first glance that Hela was not an ordinary person. The aura of the goddess of death Hela was too strong. Although she wasn't as tall as Surtur, her aura overshadowed Surtur's the moment she appeared. Compared to Sur, the current Hela was more like the ruler of Muspelheim. However, the following development perfectly proved this point. When Hela walked out from behind the throne, Surtur, who was sitting on the huge stone throne, immediately stood up and gave the throne to Hela. Then, like a guard, he stood beside the throne. Who is she? Seeing Rog's expression become more and more serious, Doom asked. Odin's eldest daughter, Asgard's eldest princess, the goddess of death Hela. Rog quickly answered Doom, and at the same time, activated his 3-tomo Sharingan. After hearing Rog's answer, Doom also silently mobilized the magic in his body, vigilant of everything around him. I didn't expect us to meet again so soon. Did that kid Thor ask you to come again? Hela, who was sitting on the throne, leaned lazily on the back of the chair, crossed her right leg, and asked with a queen-like tone. Although Hela temporarily gave up the throne of Asgard, it did not mean that she recognized Thor. In her opinion, she was still the most qualified person to inherit the throne of Asgard. As for Thor, he was just temporarily holding that position for her. It has nothing to do with Thor. It was purely my personal decision to come here. Looking at the queen-like Hela on the throne, Rog answered calmly. Hela was indeed very strong, but she was still defeated by him. In the face of his defeated opponent, Rog couldn't think of any reason to be afraid. When I sensed the eternal fire from Fenrir, I had a premonition that you would come to Muspelheim. But I didn't expect you to come so quickly. Hela's tone was still as arrogant as ever, but for some reason, this repulsive tone actually made people feel as if it was the way it should be. Actually, it's not that fast. It's just that the lifespan of humans on Earth is far inferior to that of Asgard's, so everyone's perception of the speed of time is a little different. Roga glanced at Surtur, who was standing beside the throne, and replied in a casual tone. The lifespan of Earthlings is indeed shorter, but it is not difficult for an existence like you to extend your lifespan. At this point, Hela suddenly paused, frowning as she sized up Rog. Interesting. You actually absorbed Muspelheim's planar origin energy. Because he had just digested the plane origin energy, Rog's body still had some of the plane origin energy's aura. Although these auras were very weak, for Hela, who was extremely good at controlling energy, as long as she looked carefully, she could easily see them. I was lucky I just happened to find some. Rog casually found an excuse to dodge the question. He had asked Abhijit before, wanting to know where Abhijit got the plane origin energy from. As a result, Abhijit gave him a slightly funny answer. It fell from the sky. This was Abhijit's original words at the time. Later, after realizing that the joke did not have the desired effect, Abhijit seriously explained again. That ball of plane origin energy did indeed fall from the sky, but it fell from the sky after it was spewed into the sky from the crater of an erupting volcano. According to Abhijit, at that time, he was planning to go to an active volcano to look for a metal unique to Muspelheim. As a result, before he reached his destination, the volcano erupted. Or rather, the volcano exploded. The erupting volcano sprayed a large amount of magma into the sky. After a fire rain that was like a natural disaster, Abhijit found the plane origin energy near the volcano. After confirming that the jelly he picked up was the plane origin energy, Abhijit went to the volcano a few more times, hoping to find more plane origin energy. But it was a pity that after that eruption, the active volcano became a dormant volcano, and even the magma inside disappeared completely. To be able to find a plane origin energy in a stable plane, your luck is indeed very good. However, your good luck ends here. After saying that, Hela, with her slender legs and graceful figure, stood up and picked up the twilight sword that was leaning against the throne, which did not match her figure at all. Then, she dragged this huge red twilight sword down the stairs in front of the throne step by step. If I'm not wrong, you came to Muspelheim for this twilight sword. As soon as she said that, Hela raised the 3-meter-long twilight sword and slashed it directly at Rog's neck. However, just as this huge twilight sword was about to attack Rog's neck, the size of the twilight sword began to shrink rapidly. In the end, the red tip of the twilight sword stopped only 4 or 5 centimeters away from Rog's Adam's apple. The steam rising from it formed a faint layer of mist in front of him. I guess when Odin taught you swordsmanship, he must have told you that if you don't have the intention to kill others, it's best not to point the tip of the sword at others. After saying that, Rog raised the Kusanagi no Tsurugi sword in his left hand and used the hilt to move the red tip of the twilight sword away. After doing all this, he continued, I am indeed here for the sunset light sword. Moreover, the purpose of my trip is not only the sunset light sword but also his crown. Rog did not mind Hela knowing his purpose. He was determined to get the twilight sword and Surtur's crown. Surtur could not stop him, and Hela could not stop him either. You are indeed very different from other people on Earth. You let me go last time. This time, I'll return the favor. The sword of sunset light and Surtur's crown are both yours. Hela's tone was still that of a queen, but after she finished speaking, she inserted the twilight sword, which had shrunk to more than a meter long, directly into the ground, then turned around and left. That works? After seeing Hela put down the twilight sword without hesitation, Doom's gaze toward Rog suddenly became a little strange. Could it be that he and Hela... Doom was not a particularly gossipy person, but the scene in front of him made him involuntarily think of some strange images. Just when Rog and Doom both felt that this development was a little strange, Sir, who was more than 10 meters tall, suddenly spoke. Your Majesty, this is different from what we discussed before. You can't do this to me. It's not fair. Chapter 508. No one would have thought that the legendary flame giant Surtur, who caused the twilight of the gods and completely destroyed Asgard, would actually show such a begging posture. Unfair. Surtur's words made Hela, who was climbing up the stairs, stop and look up at the legendary flame giant. Yes, this is unfair. Very unfair. Back then, we agreed that if I gave you the throne of Muspelheim, you would help me take back the eternal fire. You can't go back on your word. Surtur, who was more than 10 meters tall, said in a roaring tone, making his face that was similar to a demon from hell look even more ferocious. Looks like Odin didn't just take away your eternal fire, but also your intelligence. Looking at the ferocious Surtur, Hela let out a disdainful laugh. Fairness needs to be maintained with strength. Without strength, you have no right to ask for fairness with others. Also, let me remind you, you didn't give me the throne of Muspelheim. You lost the throne to me, do you understand? With that, Hela ignored Surtur, returned to the huge stone throne, and sat down. Hela used her actions to prove how much she did not put Surtur in her eyes. However, if one thought about it carefully, it was normal. Hela was someone who dared to go against Odin directly. Without the eternal fire, Surtur's condition was far worse than before, and he indeed had no right to make her fear him. Through the short conversation between Hela and Surtur, Rog and Dum finally understood why Hela appeared in Muspelheim and occupied Surtur's throne. Compared to Asgard, Muspelheim was indeed a backwater. However, no matter what, Muspelheim was a country in the 9 worlds, a country with complete world rules. Although the throne here was not as good as Asgard's, it was still not bad. After all, this throne symbolized the ruling power of Muspelheim. I knew it. I knew I couldn't trust any of you Asgard people. Since you don't keep your word, then don't blame me for not giving you face. Little ones, go. Let this Asgard bitch know who has the final say in Muspelheim. Surtur's voice quickly spread out. Then, nothing happened. Although there were many flame giants in the underground cavern, they completely ignored the summons of their former sovereign king. They continued to hide in the shadows of the cavern, motionless, as if they didn't hear Surtur's summons at all. After this awkward scene of no response for more than 10 seconds, Surtur did not know if it was because he felt embarrassed or because he was completely overwhelmed by anger. He let out a beast-like howl. As he roared into the sky, Surtur extended his right hand towards the twilight sword in front of Rog, attempting to summon the sole weapon that had accompanied him for countless years. But no matter how hard he tried, the sword, Surtur was stuck. Surtur could be considered a failure to live up to this point. Even the blazing demonic dragon that was chained to the stone pillar silently turned its head and closed its eyes after seeing this scene. I'm starting to doubt the records of Surtur in the ancient books. Dem, who was also the king of a kingdom, shook his head in disappointment after seeing Surtur's current state. Although Surtur was a retired king, he had ruled Muspelheim for so many years, and yet he did not cultivate a single loyal follower. To a monarch, this was simply an inconceivable matter. After realizing that the Sword of Twilight was no longer responding to his summons, Surtur finally stopped his wailing. Seems like I don't have to do it this time. Finish him off as soon as possible and don't let him continue to embarrass himself. Looking at his former colleague, Doom gave Rog a benevolent suggestion. Good suggestion. Rog agreed with Dem's suggestion, but he did not attack Surtur immediately. Instead, he summoned a black glove from the medium scroll. Endless Greed. The reason why he asked Mr. Miracle and Dr. Connors to study the Super Scroll and develop Endless Greed was to replicate Surtur's ability. Although he did not know if Endless Greed could replicate Surtur's ability as he imagined, it did not stop him from giving it a try. After putting on Endless Greed, he summoned the eternal fire that Surtur yearned for day and night and covered Endless Greed with it. Although he left most of the eternal fire in the Yamato treasure vault, he did not forget to keep some with him. In terms of attack power, the eternal fire was inferior to the hellfire. But in some aspects, the eternal fire had a huge advantage that the hellfire could not reach. For example, it could enhance the user's attack power in areas such as flames, high temperatures, and explosive shockwaves. When the eternal fire was completely wrapped around Endless Greed, he reached out his right hand, grabbed the hilt of the Sword of Twilight, and pulled it out from the ground. The moment the eternal fire touched the Sword of Twilight, he felt the perfect fit between the eternal fire and the Sword of Twilight. This feeling was like the perfect feeling when he made the final shot in a crucial basketball game. As expected, the Sword of Twilight was the best tool to utilize the eternal fire. After making sure of it, he raised the Sword of Twilight and pointed the red tip at Surtur. Don't be afraid, it will be over soon. The moment his words subsided, Rog vanished from everyone's sight. Blink. Rog with the Sword of Twilight appeared behind Surtur in an instant. More precisely, he appeared behind Surtur's legs. Before Surtur could react, the Sword of Twilight had slashed through his Achilles tendons, leaving a huge wound that was dozens of centimeters long. After slashing Surtur's Achilles tendons, Rog did not see the scene of blood splattering everywhere as he had imagined. Although it was different from what he had imagined, his hands did not stop moving. After attacking Surtur's legs, he used Body Flicker again. This time, he left the ground and leaped high into the air. He was at the same level as the back of Surtur's neck. Chapter 509. Before transmigrating, Rog had seen such a setting in a certain anime. The giant's fatal weakness was located at the back of the neck, which was 1 meter long and 10 centimeters wide. Of course, this was just a setting in that anime. In other worlds, the giant's fatal weakness might not be at the back of the neck. However, this did not stop Rog from viciously attacking the back of Surtur's neck. When he attacked Surtur's Achilles tendons with the Twilight Sword, he realized that the Twilight Sword was not a very sharp sword. To a certain extent, the Twilight Sword was more like a magic sword and not a sharp sword that mainly dealt physical damage. If he had to compare the sharpness of the Twilight Sword, it was not even as sharp as the Kusanagi no Tsurugi sword that he often used. Although the Twilight Sword was not as sharp as he imagined, it was more than enough to attack the back of Surtur's neck. As the Twilight Sword danced in the air, the back of Surtur's neck, which was thicker than his waist, welcomed the rapid flesh grinder attacks. In just 1 or 2 seconds, more than half of Surtur's neck had been sliced off by the Twilight Sword, causing his huge head to look like it was on the verge of collapsing. However, as soon as the attack of the Twilight Sword stopped, the back of Surtur's neck healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. In just a few seconds, the back of Surtur's neck had completely recovered, as if everything that had happened before was just an illusion. Unlike the rapid regeneration of flesh and blood creatures, the recovery method that Surtur displayed was a kind of energy manipulation technique. By consuming the flame energy in his body, Surtur could not only recover from his injuries at any time, but he could also directly change his body shape. For example, he could become as tall as a mountain. Of course, the premise of all this was that Surtur had enough flame energy. If Surtur still had the eternal fire, he could completely ignore Hela and Rog and even let them attack his body. Unfortunately, the one who had the eternal fire now was not him but Rog. After landing, Rog didn't stay behind Surtur. Instead, he used Blink to appear in front of Surtur. Just as Surtur was about to teach the little guy a lesson with his fists for daring to attack him, Rog did something completely out of his expectations. Rog withdrew the fire of eternity that was wrapped around Endless Greed, and threw the severely shrunken Twilight Sword back to Surtur. Under his precise control, the red-tipped Twilight Sword drew a beautiful parabola in the air. Then, it plunged straight into the ground in front of Surtur. The red tip of the sword was buried deep into the ground. "I'll return the Sunset Light Sword to you. Go all out." No one expected Rog to return the Twilight Sword to Surtur. However, after he gave up on the Twilight Sword, not only did Surtur not pull it out from the ground immediately, but he also took a few steps back vigilantly. This didn't make sense. This was a trap. Looking at the Twilight Sword that had accompanied him for countless years on the ground, all kinds of conspiracy theories appeared in Surtur's not-so-bright mind. Not only did Surtur not believe Rog's good intentions, but even the goddess of death, Hel, who had fought with Rog before, also had a doubtful look on her face. Although Hel had only fought with Rog once, she knew that Rog was the kind of person who would think of ways to increase his chances of winning. In simpler words, Rog was the kind of person who would do anything to win. And what he was doing now was obviously inconsistent with his previous style. "You don't even dare to take it back? The previous ruler of Muspelheim, don't you have the guts to do that?" Looking at the vigilant Surtur, Rog began to use Taunt to attack. The reason he returned the Twilight Sword to Surtur was, of course, not to pursue the so-called fairness of the battle. And even if Surtur had the Twilight Sword, this battle was still not a fair one for him. Surtur couldn't even win against Hel, so how could he win against Rog, who had defeated Hel before? If it was described in terms of ranks in the game, the current Surtur was a big rank lower than Rog, maybe even 2 ranks lower. With such a difference in strength, as long as Rog didn't act recklessly, Surtur's chances of winning were at most 10%. Although he was ridiculed by Rog in public, Surtur still maintained his vigilant look. Surtur was looking at Rog vigilantly, guarding against his sudden attack. At this time, Rog took the initiative to turn off his Sharingan. To be precise, he turned off his right Sharingan. Originally, the Sharingan could only be turned on or off. However, after the development of the Sage body reached 80%, Rog suddenly realized that he could perform different operations on his left and right eyes. After turning off the Sharingan in his right eye, he did not let his right eye remain in its normal state. Instead, he used his right eye to activate Byakugan. With the activation of Byakugan, the blue veins around his right eye instantly burst, giving his eyes an asymmetrical beauty. Left Sharingan, right Byakugan. The two completely different Kekki dojutsu gave him a special perspective he had never experienced before. This feeling was a bit like opening the other eye when using a monocular. After activating the different dojutsu in his left and right eyes, Rog did not rush Surtur, who was still in a dilemma, but pulled out the Kusanagi sword and the thunder fan behind his back. With endless greed in his right hand, he held the Kusanagi sword, and the thunder fan, which was too huge for his size, was held in his left hand. When Rog held the weapons in both hands, Surtur, who was worried about whether he was plotting something, finally pulled out the Twilight Sword from the ground. The moment Surtur pulled out the twilight sword, a flame instantly emerged on the blade of the twilight sword, and the size of the shrunken sword also expanded rapidly with the surging flame. When the flame completely dissipated, the twilight sword in Surtur's hand also returned to the size suitable for him, turning into a two-handed sword nearly 10 meters long. So this is how to change the size. I'll accept this method. After witnessing the scene of Surtur restoring the twilight sword to its original state, a satisfied smile appeared on Rog's face. The reason why he returned the twilight sword to Surtur was to copy, or to learn the best way to use the twilight sword from him. In this universe, Surtur was undoubtedly the person who knew how to use the twilight sword the best. With such a sensei, Rog didn't need to explore the best way to use the twilight sword by himself. The Sharingan in his left eye was used to copy and observe Surtur's use of the twilight sword. The Byakugan in his right eye was used to observe the flow of energy in Surtur's body. With this kind of observation without any blind spots, he could master the best way to use the twilight sword in the shortest time possible, so that the twilight sword would become a new trump card in his hand. Chapter 5:10. When the twilight sword returned to its original size, the flame giant Surtur's confidence also returned. Holding the twilight sword tightly with both hands, he didn't hesitate at all. He strode towards Rog like a flaming demon from ancient times. Looking at Surtur, who was getting closer and closer to him, Rog neither rushed forward nor retreated. Instead, he stood straight on the spot and waited for Surtur's arrival. Go to hell! Perhaps to vent the anger in his heart, or perhaps to encourage himself, Surtur raised the twilight sword high and shouted at Rog. Then he slashed the twilight sword down. In terms of swordsmanship, Surtur's slash wasn't considered stunning. It even seemed a little ordinary. However, with his tremendous strength that far exceeded that of ordinary creatures and the terrifying high temperature that the twilight sword itself carried, his sword displayed an astonishing momentum that was as powerful as a thunderbolt. Under normal circumstances, Rog would never compete head-on with an enemy like Surtur, who was much larger than himself. But now, he intended to experience Surtur's slash with his own eyes. He wanted to see what kind of power the deity body that was 80% developed had. In the blink of an eye, the red tip of the twilight sword arrived in front of him and collided heavily with the thunder fan made of vibranium. Boom! A loud explosion that wasn't weaker than a large yield C4 bomb boomed. Red flames, accompanied by the shockwave of the explosion, instantly engulfed Rog, who was holding the thunderball fan. The red flames gushing out of the twilight sword lasted for more than 10 seconds before slowly dissipating, revealing the aftermath of the attack to everyone. Rog, who took Surtur's slash head-on, was still standing in his original position. The thunder fan held in his left hand firmly against the tip of the twilight sword like a shield. Physical skill, monstrous strength. Monstrous strength was still monstrous strength. However, after the deity body was further enhanced, the strength given by monstrous strength was also more powerful. With the 80% developed deity body and physical skill, monstrous strength, Rog displayed physical strength that wasn't weaker than Surtur's. The legendary flame giant Sur only has this much power? Rog's disdainful voice was clearly heard by Sur. Although Surtur couldn't see the expression on Rog's face, he could imagine the mocking expression on Rog's face. Don't be too arrogant, Midgardian. Surtur raised the twilight sword again, intending to give Rog another vicious slash. However, just as he raised the twilight sword, Rog suddenly disappeared from his sight. Lightning body flicker. Before Surtur could react, he saw Rog leaping in front of him and the Kusanagi sword wrapped in silver-white lightning. Kusanagi sword, Chidori blade. Under Surtur's gaze, the Kusanagi sword, which was not even as thick as his finger, was slashed fiercely on his head, which was fused with his crown. Clang! The crisp sound of metal colliding rang out. The Kusanagi sword that struck the center of Surtur's head didn't cut in like Rog expected. It's actually that hard? Rog did not expect Surtur's seemingly ordinary head to be able to block the attack of the Kusanagi sword, Chidori blade. Although he wasn't unscathed, it was enough to shock anyone. Iron head. That was the word that popped up in Rog's mind when he saw the scene. Just as Surtur tried to reach out with his left hand to grab Rog, who was suspended in the air, his left cheek suddenly suffered a heavy slap. The one who slapped Surtur was none other than Rog. Although the Kusanagi sword, Chidori blade, didn't cause enough damage, it didn't mean that he would end his attack. Before Surtur's left hand could reach him, he slapped Surtur in the face with the thunderclap ball fan, interrupting his unrealistic fantasy. The slap from the palm of thunder didn't cause much damage to Surtur, but it was extremely humiliating. He was actually slapped by a Midgardian in his own palace in front of his own subordinates. To Surtur, who was once the ruler of Muspelheim, it was an insult worse than being mocked for having no heat in his lower body. Relying on the reaction force of the slap, Rog quickly landed on Surtur's left. Then, he cast a water release ninjutsu. Water release, ripple wave. Surtur had just turned his head and glared at Rog with a face full of rage when he saw a super-pressurized water column that was incomparably tiny to him. Surtur's forehead had fused with his crown, which was why it was astonishingly hard. However, his face wasn't protected by the crown. Although the super-pressurized water column of Ripple Wave was thin, its power and water pressure were extremely terrifying, possessing a terrifying lethality that didn't lose out to metal blades. The second Hokage Tobarama's Ripple Wave could easily sever the roots of divine trees. Although Rog was as proficient in water release as Tobarama, his Ripple Wave did not lose out to Tobarama's power. The Ripple Wave that Rog spat out of his mouth hit Surtur's left cheek like a bullet. Then, it directly pierced through his entire face and came out from the right side. If there was anything worse than a slap to the face, it would be spitting saliva on the other party's face after slapping them. At the moment, Rog was using his actions to prove what it meant to be slapped in the face repeatedly. Due to their life form, the flame giants were a race that was especially easily angered. Their temper was like the flame energy that sustained their life. The slightest provocation would cause them to completely explode. "I'll kill you. I'll definitely kill you." After being slapped in the face repeatedly by Rog, Surtur could no longer suppress the rage in his heart and bellowed as if he had lost control. Now, there was no other thought in Surtur's mind at all. His only thought now was to grind the bones and scatter the ashes of this Midgardian that popped out of nowhere, using his blood and life to wash away his humiliation. "You'll have to use everything you've got if you want to kill me." Rog didn't take Surtur's threat to heart at all. The reason he provoked Surtur again and again was to thoroughly enrage him. Only then would Surtur use everything he had against him, fully fulfilling his duty as a teacher and showing him all the ways to use the Sunset Light Sword. Chapter 511. Just as Rog expected, Surtur's mind was completely occupied by anger. As soon as the wound on his cheek healed, Surtur, who was wielding the Twilight Sword, rushed towards Rog like an enraged beast. The red tip of the Twilight Sword seemed to have sensed Surtur's anger as it emitted an even higher temperature. The front half of the blade had turned into a bright red magma. Looking at Surtur, who was running towards him, Rog didn't stand still and wait for his arrival like before. Instead of retreating, he moved forward and galloped towards Surtur. In terms of size, Roger looked like a domestic pet cat that was trying to challenge a ferocious tiger in the wild. But everyone in the cave knew that the smaller Rog was the ferocious tiger. Clang. The Kusanagi sword, which was on a completely different level in terms of size, met the Twilight Sword head-on and blocked Surtur's furious strike. Although Surtur used all his strength, the Twilight Sword still couldn't suppress the Kusanagi sword in Rog's hand. Then, under Surtur's gaze, Rog, who was under the Twilight Sword, suddenly withdrew the Kusanagi sword and let the red tip of the Twilight Sword hit the ground heavily, setting off a pure flame explosion. The flame engulfed Rog once again. However, before the flame completely dissipated, he stood on top of the Twilight Sword like a ghost with the Kusanagi sword in his hand. Although the Twilight Sword was shockingly hot, with the protection of the chakra coat, he didn't need to worry about being burned by the Twilight Sword at all. Compared to Surtur's astonishing size, Rog's speed and agility far exceeded his. "It's my turn." Rog, who was standing on top of the Twilight Sword, said to Surtur with a blank expression. In the next second, he stepped on the blade of the Twilight Sword and ran towards Surtur's huge and ugly head. Although Surta immediately swung the Twilight Sword in an attempt to shake Rog off the blade, he couldn't do it. However, all of this was destined to be futile. In the blink of an eye, Rog followed the blade of the Twilight Sword and Surta's arm and arrived in front of him. Kusanagi Sword, Chidori Blade. Although the Kusanagi Sword, Chidori blade that he used before did not chop off Surta's head that had fused with the crown, it was still not enough. However, this time, Rog didn't continue to attack Surta's head. Instead, he aimed the tip of his Kusanagi sword at Surta's right eye. The Kusanagi sword with silver lightning around it pierced through Surta's right eye as if it was piercing through a soft cake. Ah! Although the flame giants were not creatures of flesh and blood in the conventional sense, they also had a sense of pain. When their vitals were hit, they would also feel the extreme pain that penetrated deep into their bones. After piercing Surta's right eye with his sword, Rog once again did something that was out of everyone's expectations. Under the gazes of Hila, Dum, and the others, he let go of the sword in his right hand. Lightning evasion, 1,000 birds. A thunderous sound that sounded like 1,000 birds chirping at the same time suddenly rang out. Rog's endless greed, right hand was instantly enveloped by silver lightning. His entire right hand seemed to have turned into lightning. Then he ruthlessly pierced this lightning-like right hand into Surta's remaining left eye. After the previous exchange, Rog had a general understanding of Surta's physical strength. Although he could directly pierce Surta's left eye with his right hand even if he didn't use 1,000 birds. However, in order to make the battle more exciting and more importantly, to make Surta more painful, he used 1,000 birds. Without any suspense, Rog's right hand pierced into Surta's left eye like an indestructible sword, completely destroying it. If he wanted to kill Surta, he could have completely destroyed Surta's entire head in one go, turning him into a ball of flame and fusing with the crown. However, he did not do so because he still had a small task to complete before killing Surta. After using 1,000 birds to blind Surta's left eye, Rog removed 1,000 birds from his right hand and activated the one-use duplication function of Endless Greed. Duplicating the flame giant Surta's physique was the second preparation he made to fully utilize the eternal fire. If he only had the Twilight Sword, he might not be able to fully utilize the power of the eternal fire. Therefore, he did not intend to let go of Surta's special physique. In addition to the main plan A, preparing a backup plan B could effectively reduce the occurrence of accidents and the failure of the plan. A cautious ninja would never place all their hopes on a plan. The tactical glove Endless Greed, which was created according to the duplication ability of the Super Scroll, quickly completed the duplication of Surta's physique. From the moment Rog pierced his right hand into Surta's left eye to the time Endless Greed was completed, it took less than 2 seconds. In such a short time, Surta couldn't even heal the injury to his eye. After confirming that Endless Greed had completed the duplication, Rog pulled out his right hand and once again held the hilt of the Kusanagi sword. After doing all this, he kicked Surta's nose fiercely and returned to the ground with the Kusanagi sword. When Rog stepped on the ground again, Surta finally had time to heal the injury to his eyes and restore his vision. Surta's vision was restored, but his tragic experience did not end there. After duplicating Surta's physique, Rog launched a one-sided crushing battle, constantly forcing Surta to fight with his life on the line. Time passed little by little. After this cat-and-mouse battle lasted for more than 10 minutes, Rog finally had the intention to end the battle. In more than 10 minutes of ravaging, Surta showed all the ways to use the Twilight Sword. Although he didn't hurt Rog, who jumped up and down as if he wasn't human, his efforts made him a responsible teacher and taught Rog everything he had learned in his life. Right? Chidori Egi. Before Surta could turn around, Rog inserted the Kusanagi sword diagonally into the ground and summoned the Chidori Egi made up entirely of lightning. Under Rog's control, the Chidori Egi, which was more than 10 meters long, instantly cut off Surta's sword-wielding right hand, causing the Twilight Sword and the broken arm to fall to the ground with a clang. Then, while Surta's broken right arm was rapidly recovering, he rushed forward, jumped high, and performed the ultimate skill of this battle. Ninjutsu, Super Large Jade Rasengan. Rog, who jumped above Surta's head, condensed a super-large jade Rasengan with a diameter of 10 meters and smashed the super-large jade Rasengan, which was like a small blue sun, hard on Surtur's head. Boom! Surtur's astonishing body was instantly knocked down by the super-large jade Rasengan. His body made of flame energy shattered inch by inch under the terrifying distortion of the super-large jade Rasengan, returning to the most primitive flame form. When the super-large jade Rasengan completely erupted, Surtur's body also disappeared completely, turning into a red flame that rushed into the demon-like crown of more than 1 meter long. Chapter 5:12. The Super Jade Rasengan, which was 10 meters in diameter, left a huge crater on the charred ground. Along with the shockwave of the explosion, rocks larger than humans began to fall from the walls of the cave. Lava gushed out from the ground and began to fill the cracks on the ground, as well as the crater that had just been formed. When the red lava was about to touch the demonic mask-like crown in the crater, Rog formed a chakra hand, grabbed the left horn of the crown, and took the crown in his hand. If one only looked at its appearance, the crown in Rog's hand at this time was a crude and cheap handicraft, like a demonic mask handmade in the feudal era. However, the true value of the crown was far more than what its appearance showed. To a certain extent, the flame giant Surtur had already died under Rog's Super Jade Rasengan. However, this did not mean that Surtur was completely dead. As long as this crown was placed in the eternal fire, not only would Surtur be resurrected, but he would also completely recover his strength and have a terrifying mountain-like body. However, Rog wouldn't give Surtur the chance to do so. Surtur, who was sealed in the crown, had only one fate in this life, which was to become a collection in the Taiha treasure vault. After carefully examining the crown with the chakra hand, Rog threw the crown into the psychic scroll. Then, he came to the side of the twilight sword that had not completely dissipated. When Surtur was sealed, the sword of sunset light lost its only source of energy and began to crumble. As one of the main spoils of war of this trip, Rog naturally would not let the twilight sword disappear. Under the gazes of Hila, Dum, and the others, he summoned the eternal fire again and covered it in his right hand. Relying on the method he learned from Surtur, he held the hilt of the twilight sword and let the eternal fire slowly flow into the twilight sword. Under Rog's control, the body of the twilight sword began to rapidly repair, and its size also began to shrink rapidly. Within a few seconds, the twilight sword had become a one-handed sword that was more than a meter long. After casually brandishing the twilight sword a few times, Rog nodded in satisfaction. With this twilight sword alone, his trip to Muspelheim could be considered a fruitful one. With the addition of Surtur's crown and the energy manipulation techniques he had learned from Surtur, he had reaped a bountiful harvest this time. After swinging the twilight sword with satisfaction, Rog stabbed it into the ground and threw his Kusanagi sword, thunder fan, and endless greed back into the mediumship scroll. After doing all this, he once again held the twilight sword. Then the twilight sword was completely shattered. Bang! Under the double destruction of chakra and the eternal fire, the twilight sword instantly exploded like a popped balloon. Before the wreckage of the sword fell to the ground, it completely dissipated into the air. When the twilight sword completely turned into nothingness, Rog raised his right hand that was wrapped in the eternal fire as if he was holding a transparent sword. From his left shoulder he slashed down diagonally. As his right hand swung down, the twilight sword that had completely turned into nothingness once again appeared in his right hand. Starting from the hilt, it rapidly formed. When his right hand completely fell down, the 1-meter-long twilight sword also appeared. The twilight sword was not a physical weapon in the conventional sense. To be precise, the twilight sword was a magical physical weapon formed by fire energy. As long as one mastered the correct energy manipulation method, they could summon or create the twilight sword at any time. This was also the main reason why the twilight sword could change its size. From this point of view, the twilight sword was very similar to Hila's sword of the night sky. It was just that one used fire energy, and the other used death energy. After confirming that he had completely mastered the method of summoning and creating the twilight sword, Rog held the twilight sword and came in front of Hila. Hila, who was sitting on the huge stone throne, still had the lazy and aloof posture of a queen. "Thank you for your generosity. Since you don't mind me taking the Twilight Sword and Surtur's crown, I believe you won't mind fulfilling a small wish of mine." The Twilight Sword and Surtur's crown were in his hands, but Rog would not forget that he still had a commission to complete. Although the commission only rewarded 20 ninja coins, no matter how little it was still ninja coins. "Do all men on Earth not know how to be satisfied like you?" Gila did not directly refuse Rog. She propped her head with her left hand and asked with deep meaning, "I don't know if other men know how to be satisfied, but personally, I am still a little greedy." Rog did not care about Gila's tone at this time and replied in a happy mood. Gila, who was sitting on the throne, looked at Rog condescendingly for a few seconds, then slowly said, "Tell me, what else do you want?" Starting from here, in the southeast, about 600 kilometers away, there is a small village called Dawn. The village was built by an Asgard called Abhijit. When you were still in Asgard, you may have heard of his name. He is a little famous civilian blacksmith. In the village, there is a group of fire elves who claim to be the hybrid descendants of the flame giants and elves, and some others who wandered to Muspelheim. If you don't mind, I hope you can give them a small piece of land near the village and let them build a small country belonging to the fire elves. Just a piece of land is enough, and they will take care of the rest. Of course, if you can restrain the flame giants and prevent them from entering that area, that would be even better. Rog briefly explained the village. After Surtur's death, Gila was the supreme ruler of Muspelheim. If the fire elves wanted to build a country in Muspelheim, Gila was an existence that could not be avoided. Therefore, instead of hiding the existence of Abhijit and the fire elves, it was better to tell the truth to Gila openly. This could at least avoid many unnecessary problems in the future. For example, the safety of the village and the fact that Abhijit was in Asgard. "Why is it that every time I see you, you are helping someone else? Last time, you were helping that kid Thor, and this time, you are helping these so-called fire elves." Gila could not understand Rog's actions. In her opinion, a person like Rog should not be the kind of person who would work for others. "Because I am a ninja, and ninja is a profession similar to bounty hunters and mercenaries. If someone asks for a job, I will help them complete it. Of course, the commission requires a corresponding reward. If you need it, I can also accept your commission." Because there was no such profession as a ninja in Asgard, Rog simply explained what a ninja was. Of course, things like ninjutsu and chakra were not within the scope of the introduction. "I see. The eternal fire and plane origin energy are the rewards you received. In that case, we will use the form of a commission to solve the fire elves' problem. I will allow them to build a country in Muspelheim, and this is the reward I will give. As the price, I want you to kill Thor." Gila said to Rog with a serious face, and it did not look like she was joking at all. Is she serious? Rog did not expect things to develop in such a strange direction. However, he quickly made a decision. "Sorry, I cannot accept this commission. The reward is not equal to the difficulty of the commission, and Thor is my friend. I will not accept a commission to assassinate a friend." Chapter 5:13. Do people like you still care about this? Although Gila and Rog had not been in contact for a long time, including this time, it was only 2 times. However, when Rog introduced her to what a ninja was, she knew that Rog was not the kind of person who would be bound by so-called morality and conscience. The reason was very simple. A person with a Virgin Mary's heart could not become a good bounty hunter or mercenary. So she did not take Rog's refusal seriously at all. "You have to pay more." Sure enough, Rog immediately gave an answer that she expected. She didn't know why, when she saw Rog say, "You have to pay more," Gila always felt that he was imitating someone. That look, that tone, it was completely different from his previous style. "Ah, you have to pay more, interesting. Tell me, what do you want as a reward?" Gila was not worried about Rog asking for too much. In her opinion, no matter what Rog wanted, she could pay the corresponding reward. Although Gila was not the king of Asgard, She had to admit that she looked more like the king of Asgard than Thor. The life of Thanos. As long as you can kill Thanos, I will accept the commission to assassinate Thor. Rog didn't hesitate at all as he stated the reward he wanted. Thanos? Who is he? After hearing Rog's answer, Hela frowned slightly and asked puzzledly. Only then did Rog realize a problem. Hela was imprisoned by Odin more than 600 BC and only recently ended her life of imprisonment. Thanos was born 1,000 years ago, so Hela did not know who Thanos was. Note 1. He is a member of the eternal race of Titan Star, with a purple potato-like chin and purple skin. He is quite famous in the universe, with the titles of Mad Titan and Universe Emperor. He is currently one of the most popular, famous, and powerful existences in the universe. Rog briefly explained the identity of Thanos. A long time ago, he had always been curious about a question. That was, who was the strongest villain in the conventional state between the goddess of death Hela and the Mad Titan Thanos? I will kill Thanos and you will assassinate Thor. This deal sounds quite fair. However, I refuse. Hela had never seen Thanos and did not know what kind of strength Thanos had. However, she was very clear that if Thanos was so easy to solve, Rog would have done it himself. Moreover, she heard the hidden loopholes in Rog's words. Using Thanos' life in exchange for Saul's life, this sounded fair. But the problem was that the reward Roger wanted was Thanos' life, and the price he had to pay was to assassinate Saul. As we all know, assassination does not mean killing. A failed assassination is still an assassination. From these two contacts, Hela felt that Rog was likely to deliberately let the assassination fail, and then use the failure of the commission as an excuse to let Thor go. If that's the case, then there's no other way. Rog shrugged and deliberately said in a regretful tone. Okay, don't pretend, your acting is not very good. Hela directly pointed out Rog's slightly rough acting. Well, let's not talk about other things. About the Fire Elf Kingdom, if you agree, I can help you do something of equal value for free. If you don't agree, it doesn't matter. I will take them away from Muspelheim. Rog brought the topic back and waited for Hela's final answer. If Hela agrees, of course, it would be best. Whether it was for him or for the Fire Elves, this was the most effortless way. If Hela did not agree, he could only bring these Fire Elves to Tatooine, and then give them a piece of land and let them build their own Fire Elf kingdom. It's just some Fire Elves, I won't go so far as to make things difficult for them. You can go back and tell them that with their village as the center, the area within 100 miles will belong to them. As long as they don't leave that area, there won't be any flame giants to trouble them. Hela waved her hand and directly gave the land within 100 miles of the village to the Fire Elves without mentioning the reward. For an existence like Hela, she would not care about the reward of a small piece of land. The reason why she mentioned the reward of assassinating Thor was nothing more than to see what Rog, this so-called ninja, could do. Then I thank you for your kindness on behalf of the Fire Elves. After saying that, Logue bowed slightly to Hela and said sincerely, thank you. All right, you two can leave now. The next time we meet, I won't be so easy to talk to. Hela regained the attitude of a high and mighty queen and said to Rog and Abigail condescendingly. Since the host had ordered them to leave, Rog and Abigail of course would not continue to shamelessly stay here. After removing the Twilight Sword, Rog pressed Doom's shoulder with his right hand and directly used quantum teleportation to return to the village called Dawn. After passing on Hela's words to Abigail, Rog did not plan to continue staying in the village. He left the village with Doom and called Heimdall, who was in charge of Bifrost. Within a few seconds, the gorgeous rainbow-like beam of light descended from the sky and completely enveloped the two of them. Asgard, Bifrost Hall. Heimdall, send Doom back to Earth. I have some things to talk to Thor about. I'll go back later. No problem. Heimdall did not hesitate to agree to Rog's small request. When Doom's figure disappeared at the entrance of Bifrost again, Rog used quantum teleportation to come to Thor's meeting hall. Before the brilliant light of quantum teleportation dissipated, Thor's voice came, Rog, why are you back so soon? Thor was not surprised by Rog's sudden appearance because Heimdall had already reported this matter. However, He did not expect Rog to return from Muspelheim so soon. The matter is done, so I came back, but that's not the main point. The main point is that I met Hela in Muspelheim, and she's now the ruler of Muspelheim. With Hela's strength, as long as she did not want to be discovered by Heimdall, Heimdall would definitely not be able to detect her. Hela had already proven this once in Jotunheim. Is that so? So she went to Muspelheim. Thor was not too surprised that Hela had become the ruler of Muspelheim. After officially becoming the king of Asgard, Thor found a lot of information about Hela in the top-secret database that only the king of Asgard could browse, so he had expected this. Or rather, this was what Hela would do. You can seriously consider how to deal with the matter between Hela and Muspelheim. Also, there's one more thing I came here for this time. I hope you can help search for a planet called Igor. I have some things to discuss with this planet. Chapter 5:14. Igo? Are you talking about the self-aware planet? What are you looking for him for? For humans on Earth, a self-conscious planet is an illusory existence that only exists in their imagination. But for those civilizations that have opened the Grand Universe era, the existence of Igo is a long-confirmed fact. Although not many people know the specific location of Igo, there are many people who know of Igo's existence. Yes, it's the self-conscious planet. I want to go and see it, and do something I've been wanting to do for a long time. Rog didn't tell Thor his real plan because it involves some secrets about chakra. Planting the divine tree on Igo is something he has planned for a long time, and it is also the key to whether he can break through to the Heavenly Father level or the Six Paths level. I will try my best to find out the specific location of Igo, but as a friend, I suggest you don't have any strange ideas. Igo is not an ordinary life. His strength is stronger than you think. After pondering for more than 10 seconds, Thor slowly said, "Don't worry, I won't joke with my life." Although in his memory, Igo was defeated by the Milky Way awkward dance troupe. But Rog didn't underestimate Igo's strength because of this. Igo is an out-and-out Heavenly Father-level existence, an existence stronger than Thanos. But any existence of the Heavenly Father level is not easy to deal with. Odin, the father of the gods, the Ancient One, and the Lord of Hell, Mephisto, were good examples of this. After asking Thor to look for Igo, Rog did not return to the Bifrost Hall, but directly opened the portal back to Konoha headquarters in front of Thor. By the way, did you break up with Jane? The secret guard I arranged told me that Jane seems to have a new boyfriend recently. Thor didn't expect that Rog would care about his emotional life before leaving. In order to express his gratitude, he replied to Rog with a flash of lightning. But unfortunately, just at the moment he raised his right hand and tried to release the lightning, Rog used the body flicker technique and disappeared on the other side of the portal, and decisively closed the portal. Two people's long-distance relationship. For People's Carnival, long-distance relationship is really unreliable. Rog, who returned to his office, said in his heart, "Ninja coins not consumed, 960. After putting Surtur's crown in the Yamato treasure hall, Rog opened the system page and glanced at the current number of ninja coins. 40 more. For a person who was saving money, the most impatient time was the period when they were about to reach their goal. At this time, Rog is experiencing this pain. Number 2, show me all the recent valuable commissions. Rog, who was sitting on the sofa chair. Although Hinata went to the Konoha Hidden Village on Tatooine to study the Android project, she didn't forget to transfer the authority of the commission website to number 2. Yes, sir. In the next second, the commissions that have been preliminarily screened were presented in front of Rog in the form of holographic projections. Although these commissions have passed the preliminary screening procedures set by Hinata, there are not many of them that can really arouse Rog's interest. To be precise, there are only 2. Inform these 2 clients that I am a little interested in their commissions, and ask them to come to the Konoha headquarters to discuss in detail. In the end, Rog chose 2 commissions that are suspected to be related to the players. Of these 2 commissions, one is a serial killer, and the other is a ghost in the house. However, Because there is no conclusive evidence to prove that this is done by the players, these two cases were only reported to the local police and not to Konoha. In Konoha's living room, Roger met the two clients of the commission. After a detailed conversation, he accepted these two commissions and signed the commission scroll with them. Perhaps because of the patronage of the goddess of luck, these two commissions passed the judgment. Although the commission reward given is not high, the total reward is 45 ninja coins. In order to redeem the In Kyubi as soon as possible and reunite the In and Yang Kyubi, he carried out the commission without stopping. After spending a week, he successfully dealt with the inhuman serial killer, as well as the inhuman who had similar abilities to the ghost. When he got the ninja coins, he returned to the office at the Konoha headquarters. Without even changing his clothes, he directly opened the system's exchange page and found the exchange icon representing the In Kyubi. Without any hesitation, he pressed the exchange icon for the In Kyubi, and the number of unconsumed ninja coins instantly changed from 1005 to 5. He didn't pay attention to the change in the number of ninja coins, but let his consciousness enter the 8 trigram seal. Just like the last time he exchanged the In Kyubi, the majestic chakra of the In Kyubi descended on him and merged perfectly with the Yang Kyubi in the 8 trigram seal. The fusion of the In Kyubi and the Yang Kyubi was faster than he imagined. It took only 2 or 3 seconds for the In and Yang Kyubi to completely merge together. When the fusion was over, the Kyubi in the 8 trigram seal was a full circle, and the momentum it exuded was even more amazing. Compared with the obviously enhanced momentum and chakra, the Kyubi also produced an unexpected change that Rog didn't expect. When there was only the Yang Kyubi, he always felt that the Yang Kyubi was a little silly. And when he looked at the Yang Kyubi, he also felt like he was looking at a husky. But now, the Kyubi no longer had that kind of husky momentum. Instead, it was replaced by a kind of brutal momentum like an ancient beast. This momentum, good, very energetic. Rog didn't take the hostility of the Kyubi to heart and nodded with satisfaction. The current Kyubi gave him a feeling a bit like the Berserk Kyubi during the Kyubi Rebellion. With satisfaction, Rog looked at the Kyubi who was baring his teeth at him and trying to tear the 8 trigram seal, and his consciousness withdrew from the sealed space. When his consciousness returned to his body, he opened the system's attribute panel and looked at the 2 columns of Jinchuriki and Chakra. Jinchuriki, Kyubi, Resonance, 3, Chakra, 0, 5 column, 0, 25 main body, 0, 25 tailed beast. The resonance with the Kyubi dropped to 3, but Rog wasn't surprised. His previous resonance with the Yang Kyubi was 6, and now with the addition of the In Kyubi, the resonance also dropped by half, which was not surprising. Now what really attracted his attention was the latest measurement unit of chakra given by the system, column. Chapter 515. Pivotal Pillar. Kakashi, Kyubi, Senju Hashirama. This is the measurement unit of chakra that the system has used at different times. He thought that the unit after the tail would be chakra, but he didn't expect the system to directly change the measurement unit of chakra to pillar. What he didn't expect was that the system's recognition of Hashirama's chakra amount would be so high. He previously had a 6-tailed chakra amount, and Kyubi's resonance degree also reached 6, adding up to a 12-tailed chakra amount. Although this chakra unit, tail, is based on Kyubi's standard, even if it is changed to the standard of a complete Kyubi, it is equivalent to a complete Kyubi. However, now, when the chakra unit changed from Kyubi's, tail, to Hashirama's, pillar, the data given by the system is 0. For pillar, after conversion, 1 pillar is equivalent to about 1.7 complete Kyubi. Note 1. It's no wonder that Hashirama's chakra amount is called chakra. This terrifying amount of chakra is completely worthy of the unit, ton. After confirming his current amount of chakra, Rog opened the system's exchange page again and found the exchange icon symbolizing the sacred tree sapling. Regarding the sacred tree sapling, the system gave a different introduction from Rog's memory. In Naruto's world, the Jubi is the sacred tree sapling. The Otsutsuki clan first planted the Jubi on the ground of the alien planet, and then after the Jubi grew to a certain stage, the guardian was used as a living sacrifice for the Jubi to eat. When the Jubi ate the guardian, it could truly transform into the sacred tree, spreading its roots to all corners of the planet, absorbing the chakra of all creatures on the planet, and finally bearing the chakra fruit. However, because of the wrong world, the system adjusted some of the settings of the sacred tree sapling. Note 2, because in the world where Rog is now, there is no Otsutsuki clan, and there is no so-called guardian, so the sacred tree can't grow in the original way. In this regard, the system very considerately cancelled the setting that the Jubi must devour the guardian to mature. In addition, the system also made a distinction between the sacred tree sapling and the Jubi. The Jubi chakra became a pure-tailed beast, with 1 to 9 tails, and the Otsutsuki. As for the sapling, it became a pure sacred tree. A sacred tree that can only bear chakra fruit and has no other abilities. Rog had already learned about the system's adjustments when he had the idea of planting the Tree of God. Moreover, he was very satisfied with the price of the Tree of God's sapling after the system had adjusted it. Sapling of the sacred tree, exchange price, 500 ninja coins. Although 500 ninja coins is not a low price, for Rog who has exchanged 1,000 ninja coins twice, 500 ninja coins is an acceptable and reasonable price. In other words, 500 ninja coins is equivalent to a chakra fruit. As long as he can find a suitable planet and has enough strength to protect the sacred tree sapling, it will be a very cost-effective deal. Rog had already decided on where to plant the sapling of the Tree of God long ago. Although there are many planets in the universe, when it comes to planting trees, no planet is more suitable than Igo. To some extent, Igo and the sacred tree are destined to be soul mates. And coincidentally, Igo's plan to conquer the universe is also completed by planting its own seeds on alien planets. Number 2, I will give you the authority to mobilize all resources and immediately arrange people to go to the forest in Missouri to find a plant that does not belong to the earth. If there is any discovery, protect the scene and inform me immediately. After thinking for a few seconds, Rog gave a new order to number 2. Sir. Although Rog didn't give too much detailed information, number 2 didn't think there was anything wrong with it. If Rog knew everything, he wouldn't have to give this order. Soon, Rog's strange order was conveyed to Konoha's intelligence department and all the field personnel on vacation. Even the werewolves who had just joined Konoha not long ago also received the order. Find an alien plant? Is there another alien invasion? Missouri? Damn it, my parents live in Missouri. Just when these intelligence personnel and field personnel were guessing what secrets were hidden behind Rog's order, Rog left the office and went to his private practice room. The last time he came here was when he taught Hulk Hashiman Tanku. That time, the Berserk Hulk had directly destroyed his cultivation room. It wasn't until half a month later that the damaged practice room was repaired and further reinforced. Looking at the new practice room, Rog directly started the practice to improve QB's resonance degree. The addition of Een QB made the resonance degree between him and QB drop to 3. This is a problem that needs to be solved immediately for him who has mastered the half-tailed beast transformation. When the resonance degree reaches 1, he can use the first stage of the Bijou transformation, the Bijou chakra coat. And if he wants to enter the half-tailed beast transformation, the resonance degree must reach at least 4 before he can use it. As for the complete Bijou transformation and QB mode, the resonance degree must reach at least 8. Rog doesn't expect himself to be able to restore the resonance degree to the previous 6 in a short time, but no matter what, he must at least raise the resonance degree to 4. Only in this way can QB become another trump card in his battle, instead of a chakra power bank. Because Kuroto already had a resonance level training in Konoha before, so this resonance level training is a walk in the park for him. Time flies. Rog's resonance degree practice plan lasted for a full 4 months before it finally came to an end. Because of his previous experience, his cultivation efficiency this time was much higher than when he was in Konoha's hidden village. In only 4 months, he raised his resonance degree with QB to 5. In addition to this, he has an additional gain. Sage mode development progress, 85%. The increase in the amount of chakra brought by the improvement of the resonance degree also led to the further development of the sage mode, making him closer and closer to the complete sage mode of Hashirama. After this 4-month practice, he opened the system's property panel again and looked at his current chakra amount. Chakra amount 0, 6 column 0, 25 main body 0, 35 bijou. Chapter 5:16. Planet Tatooine, Konoha Hidden Village, Hinata's Private Laboratory. Android Project, 137th Test, Configuration Version 3.52, Test begins. Hinata's new projection stood in the middle of the laboratory, looking at the cradle of life, in front of her with an expressionless face. It has been almost half a year since she officially started the Android Project. In the past 6 months, she didn't waste a single day and devoted all her energy to the Android Project. Relying on the Illusion Calculation Matrix data and the Cradle of Regeneration Project data obtained by ROG, Hinata designed the most important key instrument in the Android Project, the Cradle of Life. Unlike the traditional cloning project, what she's doing now is simulating the birth process of life through technology. To some extent, she's trying to become her own creator. According to the laws and ethics of Earth, Hinata's Android Project is definitely a taboo evil experiment. However, whether it was Hinata herself or Roger, the supporter behind her, they didn't take this to heart. What's more, Hinata didn't carry out the experiment on Earth, but built the laboratory on Tatooine. The sword of the previous dynasty can't kill the officials of this dynasty. The laws and ethics of Earth can't bind other planets. As time passed slowly, the progress bar on the display screen in front of the Cradle of Life continued to advance towards 100%. Looking at the progress bar, which has reached 83%, Hinata's face still didn't change. In previous experiments, she has pushed the progress of the experiment to more than 90% more than once. The best time was when she pushed the progress to 96%. But she didn't know if it was fate or the problem of the equation. The experiment failed in the end. After experiencing failure again and again, Hinata's state of mind became more and more stable, and no longer changed because of the failure of the experiment or another breakthrough in progress. Under Hinata's patient waiting, the progress bar on the display screen of the Cradle of Life finally broke through to the key 95%. At this time, the Cradle of Life, which was running smoothly, slowly stopped, as if it suddenly entered a standby state. At the same time, Hinata's holographic projection began to gradually disappear, and the warning light on the Cradle of Life changed from a gentle blue to a dazzling red. Laboratory closed, Energy Mobilization Authority raised to the highest level. Main System Control Authority transferred to Number 3. Database Backup, Computation Matrix Backup. Konoha Hidden Village's security system has entered Level 1 alert. The second phase of the Android Project, Artificial Intelligence Implantation Phase, has been activated. When Hinata's holographic projection disappeared, an emotionless mechanical voice sounded in the laboratory. The door of the laboratory began to close and the No. 3 foot under the Konoha Hidden Village was activated, and various data and permissions were transferred one by one. Although ROG didn't get the plan for artificial intelligence implantation into organic organisms from Dr. Banner, he got Reed's version of the implantation plan from Mr. Fantastic. Based on the implantation plan given by Reed, Hinata used her own computing matrix to modify it and finally determine the implantation plan that was suitable for her. When the Cradle of Life's progress reached 95%, Hinata would transfer her calculation matrix to the Cradle of Life, allowing the Cradle of Life to implant the final consciousness and memory into the brain of the body. As the red warning light on the Cradle of Life kept flashing, Hinata let her main body enter the Cradle of Life and began the final step that would determine the success or failure of the experiment. Earth, Konoha Headquarters, ROG's private massage room. You can use a little more strength. ROG, lying on the massage bed with his eyes closed, said to his life assistant Sharon Carter. Sharon was originally his second assistant, but after he had Hinata, Sharon's position changed from his personal assistant to his life assistant. letting an agile and experienced former S.H.I.E.L.D. agent be a life assistant, this kind of thing can only be done by ROG. Although Sharon is Kuroto's personal assistant, he doesn't have much contact with her because he usually isn't in Konoha HQ. He's either practicing or playing console games in the Kree Empire. If it weren't for the end of the 4-month resonance training and just remembering that he still has a life assistant, he wouldn't be lying here with only a bath towel wrapped around him. Yes, sir. After hearing ROG's instructions, Sharon silently increased the strength of her hands and kept wandering on ROG's muscular back. It has to be said that S.H.I.E.L.D. has a good eye for choosing people. When she was an agent, Sharon was an elite agent in S.H.I.E.L.D. When she was an assistant, she was not a good personal assistant. When she became a life assistant, her massage skills were no worse than those of the professionals outside. Under Sharon's massage, ROG, with his eyes closed, began to feel sleepy. However, just when his consciousness was in a half-awake and half-confused state, he suddenly found that the hand on his back had become a little wrong. Although Sharon is not on a field mission now, she used to be a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent who had undergone professional shooting training. On her hands, there are some calluses left from shooting practice. But now, the pair of hands that were swimming on his back gave him an unusually delicate feeling, as if they were just born babies. This is definitely not Sharon. After confirming this, ROG, who was still a little sleepy, woke up in an instant. This is his private massage room, and no one can enter here except him. At this time, his privilege was broken. If it were any other matter, he might just turn a blind eye to it and forget about it. But when it comes to his own personal affairs, he is not so easy to talk to. Who are you? Who let you in? ROG's tone was a little cold, and at the same time, he sensed the life energy signal of the uninvited guest behind him. What is this? Ever since he mastered the chakra sensing technique, he has sensed at least 800 lives. If not 1,000, he has sensed at least 800. However, he had never sensed such an incomparably familiar life energy signal from anyone. Chakra. This is the unique energy signal of chakra. After discovering this, he did not wait for the person behind him to reply and directly mobilized chakra. He jumped up in an instant and looked at the uninvited guest with chakra. However, when he saw the uninvited guest who suddenly replaced Sharon, a look of surprise appeared on his face. Waist-length black hair, with some light purple eyes, a gentle appearance with a very oriental style, a sleeveless lavender top with a black belt, black sports shorts, and black boots. This uninvited guest who replaced Sharon is none other than Hinata. To be precise, it's Hinata from the movie, Thelast, the 19-year-old Hinata. Okasama, Hinata is back. Hinata showed a pure and charming smile and said softly to ROG, who was only wrapped in a bath towel. Sharon, go out, no one can come in without my permission. Although ROG's eyes had been fixed on Hinata, he quickly said to Sharon, who was standing at the door of the massage room. Chapter 517. When Sharon left the massage room and closed the door, ROG didn't hesitate and immediately activated Byakugan. Byakugan activate. Under the Byakugan's ability to see through things, the secrets of Hinata's body were revealed to his eyes without reservation. Unlike the Genjutsu's metal body made of vibranium, Hinata's body is the flesh and blood of a carbon-based life form. A rhythmic beating heart, slow-flowing blood, cells containing life energy. If you exclude the chakra in Hinata's body, she is no different from an ordinary human being on Earth. After taking a detailed look at the internal situation of Hinata's body, ROG turned off Byakugan, and a dignified look appeared on his face. Although he had a premonition that this day would come when he promised Hinata to carry out the android project. But when the living Hinata really appeared in front of him, he still had some unrealistic feelings. This is not a holographic virtual projection, this is a living human, a real human with the same appearance as Hinata. Under Hinata's gaze, ROG, who was only wrapped in a bath towel, came in front of her and pinched her face with a complicated expression. This kind of soft, tender feeling with the warmth of her body. After pinching Hinata's cheeks a few times like pinching a baby's round cheeks, Roger retracted his right hand and calmed down his complicated and excited mood. How do you have chakra? Although excited, Rog didn't forget the business and asked Hinata. When building this body, I referred to some of your physical data and energy data during cultivation, and then combined with the Hashimoto Tonka data you gave to number 2, as well as the post-adjustment plan, I made some adjustments to the body's cells. Then I have chakra. After saying that, Hinata stretched out her right hand and let the light blue chakra cover her white right hand. Is this even possible? Rog certainly knows that chakra is the body's energy extracted from the cells. However, he didn't expect that Hinata would be able to deduce the method of chakra's production based on the information he left behind and the collected chakra energy data. And judging from Hinata's current level of control, her control of chakra has reached the level of ninjutsu. Keep all information related to chakra under the highest level of confidentiality. I will give you some ninjutsu practice methods later. See if you can practice these ninjutsu. From his perception and observation of the Byakugan, Hinata's chakra wasn't much different from his own chakra. If there's a difference, it's that in Hinata's chakra, he only felt the fire and lightning attributes. However, based on this alone, he can't be sure that the chakra on Hinata's body is real chakra. Only chakra that can perform jutsu is the real chakra. Otherwise, the chakra on Hinata's body can only be regarded as pseudo-chakra with the same energy nature. Okay, Hinata had no objection to Rog's proposal and agreed with a smile. Only she knows that with chakra, she is far from being the same as Rog. What she wants is not only the appearance that Rog wants, but also the same ability as him. Only in this way can she become the only irreplaceable existence around Rog. In the next few minutes, Roger asked a few more questions about other matters. For example, after having a body, does Hinata still have the ability to control Konoha's main system? In this regard, Hinata gave him a reassuring answer. Although the current Hinata is no longer an artificial intelligence in the pure sense, the abilities possessed by artificial intelligence have been perfectly transformed and inherited by her. To put it simply, the current Hinata is like an Esper with the electronic network control ability. Although she no longer had her own program in the virtual world, she was now a living artificial intelligence program. It's just that because she is now in a human body, she can't do the terrifying amount of calculations she used to do. If she wants to perform a large number of calculations, she can only remotely control the mainframe of Konoha's headquarters and let the mainframe complete the data calculation. Although in this regard, Hinata is not as good as the previous artificial intelligence form, Rog didn't take this to heart. There is a living Hinata standing in front of him. Only a fool would want those programming programs that can only be seen but can't be touched at all. Moreover, although Hinata is no longer an artificial intelligence, Konoha's headquarters still has number 2 with the same structure and ability, and Konoha's hidden village also has number 3. Even if number 2 and number 3 are gone, he can create another number 4, number 5, and number 6. Copying and pasting is the traditional craft of the internet age. Okay, you go out first, I'm going to change clothes. After learning what he wanted to know, Rog issued an eviction order to Hinata. Go out? You can change clothes in front of me, I don't mind. Hinata's face still had that naive smile. However, Rog can be 100% sure that Hinata's real thoughts are not as naive as she shows. Miss, I mind. Don't look at indecent things, understand? Hurry up and go out. After driving Hinata out of the massage room, Rog took off the bath towel wrapped around his body and put on his clothes. At the same time, an inexplicable idea emerged in his mind. How to make a life that was originally an artificial intelligence have the moral emotions of a human, this is a problem worth studying. If Hinata was really just a robot, it would be easier to solve, and he would just ignore this problem. But the problem is that the current Hinata is a living human, a human who created herself. Facing such a Hinata, Rog can't treat her like an artificial intelligence or robot. However, he quickly threw this question to the back of his mind. Androids are also human. Androids can fall in love with humans, so androids are not a problem. After dressing up, Rog left the massage room and returned to his office with Hinata. You are now a human, so you can leave all the daily things to number 2. You are still my personal assistant, and your authority is only under me. As for the rest, you can arrange it for yourself." While talking to Hinata, Rog's fingers were frantically tapping on the keyboard, typing out the Hyuga clan's gentle fist cultivation method, as well as several fire release and lightning release ninjutsu cultivation methods. Of course, there is also the necessary hand seals to perform ninjutsu. Rog has the Muji ninjutsu talent given by the system, so hand seals are just a way for him to show off. But for other ninjas, hand seals are the key to release ninjutsu. The kind of person who claps his hands and gets whatever he wants is not in the scope of reference. This is your work for the next few days. See if you can practice gentle fist and these ninjutsu. You don't need to be able to release them immediately. Just remember the chakra operation method of these ninjutsu first. After speaking, Rog handed the information that had just been printed to Hinata in front of him. Chapter 518. Hinata's appearance caused a small sensation in Konoha's headquarters. Except for Rog, no one thought that after disappearing for a few months, Hinata would turn from an artificial intelligence into a living human. Although it's a bit unbelievable with the case of J.S. becoming a genjutsu, it's not particularly difficult to understand that Hinata turned from an artificial intelligence into a human. The Punisher followed Abomination and the others and quickly accepted this. They didn't change their view of Hinata just because she had a real body. However, after seeing Hinata, especially after knowing that Hinata's current body was only 19 years old, the way they looked at Rog became a bit strange. But even so, they quickly accepted Hinata's existence. After all, the friendship between girls sometimes came so quickly. In this regard, the invisible heroine Susan is a good example. After reintroducing Hinata, who already had a body, to the Punisher and the others, Rog began his own short rest time. When Hinata was practicing gentle fist and ninjutsu, Rog didn't disturb her. Instead, he stayed in his room all day wearing a virtual game helmet, playing the console game invented by the Carey Empire. Time passed in a flash, and a week passed unknowingly. During this week, in addition to playing games to pass the time, Rog didn't forget to pay attention to the progress of Hinata's cultivation and the search for Igo's clone. In terms of combat power, the current Konoha has no shortage of combatants. In addition to Konoha's special forces and Umbu, Bulin and other werewolves also have an official combat order in Konoha. Wolves. Because he doesn't have much talent in naming, Rog gave the combat unit composed of Bulin and other werewolves a very appropriate name. For the name Wolves, Bulin and other werewolves had no objection. Not to mention that Rog just named them wolves, even if Rog called them hounds, they wouldn't have any objection. After joining Konoha, Bulin and the others discovered how important it is to have enough money and security in a capitalist country like the United States. They no longer have to worry about being hunted by vampires all day long, let alone meeting those killers and mercenaries hired by vampires. Konoha gave them a strong sense of security that they once yearned for but never had. Because the Wolves' combat order hasn't been officially made public, Bulin and the others became the main force in searching for Igo's clone. This is the first official mission of Bulin and others, and they also took all their energy to find the alien plant mentioned by Rog. Unfortunately, for months had passed and they still had nothing to show for it. Missouri wasn't the largest state in the United States, and it wasn't even in the top 15. However, this didn't mean that it would be easy to find an unknown alien plant in this place. In order not to disappoint Roger, and more importantly, to prove that the lichens were useful to Konoha, led by Bulin, the 4 Alpha Wolf Kings made a joint decision. Gather all the werewolves in the United States, as long as they are not infants and the elderly who can't move alone, and go to Missouri to find the alien plant. For a time, tens of thousands of werewolves, in just a few days, all poured into Missouri and started a crazy carpet search. Rog didn't know that Bulin and others would mobilize so many people at first, directly mobilizing the entire werewolves. When he found out, these werewolves had already searched the forests and mountains of Missouri for more than 3 months. Tens of thousands of werewolves searched for more than 3 months with great fanfare, but the result was still nothing. In this regard, Rog didn't find it strange. Although the clone left by Igo was only a strange plant, it was still a clone left by the existence of the Heavenly Father. Igo didn't know when he would be able to make all the preparations for the plan. In order to ensure that the clones he left on various planets won't have any accidents, he must leave some measures to protect the safety of his clones. After roughly taking a look at the recent search progress of Bulin and others, he used quantum transmission to come to his private training room. When Hinata also began to practice Gentle Fist and Ninjutsu, his private training room had one more user. The reason why he let Hinata practice in his own training room was, on the one hand, for the sake of confidentiality, and on the other hand, because his training room has the highest level of defense and security. After experiencing Hulk's rampage last time, his training room has become the strongest area in the entire Konoha headquarters. Practicing here, there is no need to worry about the power of ninjutsu. When the brilliant aurora-like light lit up, Rog's figure appeared in the training room. Hinata, who was practicing ninjutsu, sensed the arrival of Rog for the first time, but she didn't stop her practice but quickly formed hand seals. In less than 3 seconds, Hinata completed 6 hand seals. Then she puffed up her cheeks and spouted a huge fireball with a diameter of more than 1 meter from her mouth. Fire release, great fireball. Looking at the huge fireball flying quickly towards him like a cannonball, Rog didn't dodge and also used fire release, great fireball. In order to keep the size of his fireball about the same as Hinata's, he also deliberately suppressed his chakra to prevent his fireball from being too big. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the 2 huge fireballs collided fiercely, erupting into a pure firestorm. The orange-red flames flew around, quickly blocking the sight of the 2 of them. Then at this time, 4 or 5 silver-white lightning passed through the scattered flames and rushed towards Rog. Lightning release, lightning palm. As the inventor of this ninjutsu, Rog recognized the lightning palm at a glance. However, at this time, he still didn't intend to dodge. Just when these finger-thick lightning were about to hit him, with Rog's body as the center, a silver-white lightning appeared out of thin air, completely enveloping him. Lightning release, Chidori. Fire release against fire release, lightning release against lightning release. Although the lightning released by the lightning palm has no fixed attack trajectory, in front of Chidori, which is also lightning release, these lightning bolts are not difficult to resist. Like the positive and negative poles of a magnet, the lightning released by the lightning palm fiercely hit the lightning of Chidori, and the 2 offset each other, bursting into dazzling light. Chapter 5:19. Although Hinata doesn't have any actual combat experience, it doesn't mean that her combat awareness is bad. In any case, her predecessor was an artificial intelligence. Tani's artificial intelligence, Friday, can analyze the opponent's attack routine in just a few seconds and formulate a corresponding counterattack strategy. As an artificial intelligence of the same model as Friday, Hinata also has excellent combat analysis ability. The only thing that makes her inferior to Friday is that she can't perform the same terrifying data calculations as Friday. The dazzling light caused by the thunder palm and Chidori stream offset each other, resulting in a blinding effect similar to a flash bomb. However, whether it's Rog or Hinata, neither of them can only rely on their vision to lock onto the target. Before the blazing light dissipated, Rog took the initiative to attack. Body flicker technique. Rog instantly crossed the distance of more than 10 meters between himself and Hinata and appeared behind her like a ghost. However, just as his right fist was about to hit Hinata's back, Hinata's hands wrapped in light blue chakra blocked his attack first. Hyuga soft fist. Although Hinata doesn't have Byakugan like Rog, this doesn't affect her performance of soft fist. Turn around, block, attack. At this time, Hinata showed an extremely excellent physical fitness, and she didn't have the slightest intention of giving up the initiative of the battle. She launched a series of rapid attacks against Rog, who is far stronger than her. Hinata's punching speed is fast, but unfortunately, the enemy she is facing now is Rog, who is also good at soft fist. Unlike the steel fist, which was a passionate confrontation, The confrontation of the soft fist gave people a pleasing feeling. Logue and Hinata, who were using gentle fist, looked like they were teaching each other moves. They were fighting back and forth, not giving in to each other. Of course, this seemingly equal situation is the result of Rog's plan. If he really wants to defeat Hinata with soft fist, Hinata can't exchange so many moves with him, and she can't even keep up with his punching speed. In terms of mastery of soft fist, Rog is far better than Hinata. In terms of physical fitness, he is several levels higher than Hinata. Although Hinata has worked hard to exert her current soft fist to the limit, in front of Rog, her attacks are still too weak. Just as Hinata's punches were getting slower and slower, revealing more and more flaws, Roger, who had the absolute upper hand, suddenly retreated. Rog's sudden retreat stunned Hinata. However, she soon faced with a new attack. At the same time, Roger pulled out 3 shurikens from his ninja bag. Then, he threw the 3 shurikens shuriken. Uchiha's throw. Rogtides, T's shurikens urians that's shuriken tiki shuriheist. Shuri, tiki, esjutsu. Dang, the 3 shuriken hit the target according to the established attack trajectory. However, at this time, it wasn't Hinata who was hit, but a wooden dummy that was originally located near her. Good. This is a beautiful move. Although all of Hinata's ninjutsu were given by him, seeing Hinata so calmly use jutsu and resolve his shuriken's attack, Rog couldn't help but praise her. It's not easy to stay calm and make the right judgment in a crisis. Especially for those who had never experienced a real battle, this point was even more precious. After using jutsu to resolve Rog's shuriken attack, Hinata didn't hesitate and continued to use her ninjutsu. Body flicker. Hinata's figure suddenly disappeared from Rog's sight. In the next second, Hinata, holding a black kunai, came in front of him and stabbed it into his heart. How is this possible? Hinata didn't expect that her rapid attack would actually succeed. This result was completely beyond her imagination. But soon she knew the reason. Boom! Rog, who was stabbed in the heart by the kunai, suddenly turned into a cloud of smoke and disappeared. At the same time, Rog's voice sounded behind her. The combination of jutsu and body flicker is good. But before you attack, you should at least know whether the enemy you are facing is the real one or not. At the same time as Rog's voice sounded, Hinata, who was holding a kunai, quickly turned around. However, the moment she turned around, Rog gently flicked her forehead. "You're dead." Hinata wasn't surprised that she would die. After all, the opponent she was facing now was Rog. But what she didn't expect was that she would be defeated so thoroughly that she didn't even recognize that it was a shadow clone who fought with her. After thinking of this, a look of loss quickly appeared on her delicate face, and then she slowly said, "Did you use the shadow clone jutsu after the thunder palm?" Quantum transmission is not a ninjutsu, and Hinata, who already has chakra, is very sure of this. So she knew that it must be Rog who came here. Since it's the real one, then the only time it's possible to use the shadow clone jutsu to replace the real one is the moment when the thunder palm and Chidori burst out a blazing light. Yes, I did use the shadow clone jutsu at that time. Your combat awareness and skills are good now, but your experience is still a bit lacking. Although he is Hinata's ninjutsu sensei, Rog himself didn't expect that Hinata could master ninjutsu to this extent in just a week. Great Fireball, Great Fire Annihilation, Fire Dragon, Thunder Palm, Lightning Sword Draw, Body Flicker, Substitute, Hold, Shadow Clone Jutsu, Chakra Perception. Rog gave Hinata a total of 10 ninjutsu practice methods. As a result, it took Hinata only a week to completely master these 10 ninjutsu. This kind of cultivation talent is even more abnormal than Kuroto, who has the system. It's precisely because of this that he just had the idea of testing Hinata's actual combat ability. Although Hinata had lost, the combat awareness and combat skills she displayed were not inferior to professional military superheroes like the Punisher and Abomination. The only thing she still lacks is that she doesn't have any actual combat experience for the time being. As long as you agree to let me join the Special Forces, I can quickly get enough actual combat experience. Hinata once again mentioned the proposal that was rejected by Rog a few days ago. No, the work of the special forces is not suitable for you. I have a better plan. Chapter 520. A better plan? A look of doubt appeared on Hinata's face. However, this doubt of hers quickly turned into a pleasant surprise. As Rog's most reliable personal assistant, Hinata knows more about Rog than anyone else. To some extent, she can even directly guess what Rog really wants. Let's put aside the actual combat experience first. I will find a way to let you have the Byakugan. Although Hinata's current appearance is exactly the same as in his memory, without the Byakugan, Hinata always feels a little less. Since he has already pursued excitement, he must follow through to the end. Byakugan. Hinata is no stranger to the Hyuga clan's Kekkei Genkai. When she practiced Hyuga Gentle Fist, she already knew what kind of existence the Byakugan is. At the same time, she also knew that Rog's special eyes, which can make the veins in his eyes burst, are the Byakugan. However, because she only knew the existence of the Byakugan after she had a body, she didn't know about it. And she has never studied the Byakugan, so she can't make herself have the same Byakugan as Rog. Are you going to transplant your eyes to me? Hinata asked with some uncertainty. In her understanding, this is not something Rog would do. Transplant is transplant, but not transplant my eyes to you. I hope you can copy my Byakugan with the Cradle of Life, and then make a suitable Byakugan for you to transplant to your body. A long time ago, Rog had considered using biotechnology to clone Sharingan and Byakugan. However, after communicating with Dr. Connors and Reed in detail, he could only reluctantly give up this idea. For Dr. Connors and Reed, not to mention cloning a pair of eyes, even cloning a person is not particularly troublesome. Konoha now has enough ability to carry out cloning experiments. Cloning is not a problem. The problem is that the cloned eyes, if transplanted to a target without chakra, will be a pair of strange eyes, and there will be serious transplant rejection. After all, the awakening of Sharingan and Byakugan requires chakra. However, after the appearance of Hinata, or rather, after the appearance of Hinata with chakra, this idea that was once put aside by Rog reappeared in his mind. Through the Cradle of Life, Hinata could create a Byakugan suitable for her. Moreover, with chakra, she wouldn't face the awkward situation of not being able to open her eyes after the transplant. Is this really okay? Although he was the designer of the Cradle of Life and his body had been created by the Cradle of Life, he was still very much a part of the Cradle of Life. However, Hinata still felt that Rog's Byakugan duplication plan was a bit too crazy. It should work. As long as you can uncover the secrets of the Byakugan, creating your own Byakugan shouldn't be a problem. If it weren't for the fact that there is no physical exchange between the Sharingan and the Byakugan in the system, Rog wouldn't have to think about using biotechnology to clone the Byakugan. In the beginning, he planned to use biotechnology to clone a pair of Manjikyu Sharingan, and then by transplanting this pair of Manjikyu Sharingan, he would obtain the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. However, he quickly rejected this idiotic idea. The cloned Manjikyu Sharingan would still be his Manjikyu Sharingan. Even if he transplanted it, it would be impossible for him to evolve the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. If he wants to open the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan by transplanting the Manjikyu Sharingan, he must cultivate a new pair of Manjikyu Sharingan, and it must be different from his current Manjikyu Sharingan. Then, it is possible for him to evolve the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan by transplanting his own Manjikyu Sharingan. Not to mention whether this method will work or not, the complexity of the plan alone is enough to make him give up this plan. Compared with the ordinary Manjikyu Sharingan, the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan only breaks the curse of the Manjikyu Sharingan. It will no longer cause blindness due to overuse, and the burden on the body is greatly reduced. Except for these 2 points, there is not much difference between the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan and the ordinary Manjikyu Sharingan. And these 2 points are solved invisibly after he obtained the sage body of Hashirama. The sage body inherited from Hashirama is enough to ensure that he will not go blind due to overuse. As for the burden brought by the Manjikyu Sharingan, it is not worth mentioning in front of the sage body. Although there is no way to obtain the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, Rog does not care too much about this matter. After all, compared with the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, the Rinnegan is more fragrant. If Hinata can really use the Cradle of Life to create her own Byakugan, Rog does not mind letting her clone a few pairs of his Manjikyu Sharingan. Although the Sharingan with the same Manjikyu Sharingan will not allow him to evolve the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, it is not a problem to use them as consumables. For example, Izanami and Izanagi will make the Sharingan blind forever. In this regard, Konoha's Wok King Danzo gave a good use method. Of course, Danzo's method is a bit disgusting, but it is undeniable that it is a good tactic. Well, when do we start? Hinata was not dissatisfied with Rog's arrangement. As long as it is Rog's arrangement, no matter what it is, she will unconditionally choose to accept it. Hinata knows that she is just a substitute, in Rog's mind, but she does not mind this. Even if she is a substitute, she wants to be the one and only one. Let's do it today. Anyway, there is nothing urgent recently. Apart from looking for Igo's clone, there is nothing particularly urgent in Konoha for the time being, just some daily work. These daily work, whether he is in Konoha or not, will not have any impact. Then I will let number 2 arrange the transmission channel now. Hinata continued. No, just leave it to me. As soon as his voice fell, Rog took out the hanging ring and began to cast the portal magic. The further improvement of the sage physique has brought more than just the increase of chakra. The enhancement of his physique has also silently enhanced his spell casting ability. Whether it is the control of mana or casting skills, he has improved a lot. As Rog's right hand drew a circle in the air, a portal shining with golden sparks appeared in front of them. In the past, he couldn't directly open the portal connecting to Tatooine. But now, as long as he wants to, he can do it. Not only Tatooine, but even Xuanku and Xander can do it. Chapter 521. Planet Tatooine, Konoha Hidden Village, Hinata's Private Laboratory. After doing a detailed examination of Rog's eyes and extracting some biological samples from them, Hinata began her research on the Byakugan. As for Rog, who can only be used as a tool for the time being, he returned to his office in Konoha Hidden Village, took out the magic book he got from Dr. Doom, and studied the magic information about the human body refining. Whether in the field of science or in the field of magic, the content involving human body reconstruction is strictly controlled. However, whether it's Hinata or Roger, neither of them will put these restrictions in their eyes. Although in the field of scientific research, Rog can't provide much help to Hinata. However, he can find other breakthroughs in the field of magic he is better at. Whenever it comes to biological research projects, he can't help but miss Orochimaru. If it weren't for the fact that he only has 5 ninja coins, he would want to exchange some of Orochimaru's research notes from the system and see how the number 1 scientist of the ninja world solves this kind of problem. Time passed in a flash, and unknowingly, Rog and Hinata stayed in Konoha Hidden Village for more than half a month. In this half a month, Hinata completely broke through the cloning and replication of the Byakugan and can create eyes that are exactly the same as Rog's Byakugan through the Cradle of Life. According to common sense, at this step, Hinata can start to try to transplant the cloned Byakugan. However, they now encountered a problem that they didn't expect at all, so their plan had to be temporarily put on hold. Although Hinata has chakra, she only has 2 attributes of chakra, fire and lightning. Under normal circumstances, with only 2 attributes of chakra, she can also awaken the Byakugan. But the problem is that the Byakugan she created now is Rog's Byakugan, which perfectly matches Rog's 7 attribute chakra. So, a very awkward problem appeared. With only 2 attributes of chakra, there is no way for Hinata to match Rog's Byakugan. In order to solve this version of the bug, Rog returned to Earth and once again began his daily mission of farming missions. For a while, he became the busy person in Konoha. Although these missions are not difficult, there is no way to get too much commission reward, and some of them can't even pass the system's judgment. However, after spending more than a month, Rog successfully increased the number of ninja coins to 125. Research on the transplantation of Byakugan and Sharingan and other Kei-Genkai, Orochimaru. Although Orochimaru has never transplanted the Byakugan and the Sharingan, as the #1 scientist in the shinobi world, how can he ignore these two Kei-Genkai? As for whether or not this research report was written by Orochimaru, Roger wasn't very sure. However, judging from the system's past performance, the credibility of this research report was still very high. If there is no value in it, the system wouldn't give the exchange price of 85 ninja coins. After exchanging the research report, Rog returned to Tatooine and handed the electronic version of the report to Hinata. He knew every word in the research report, but when those strange professional terms were combined together, he couldn't do anything. Professional matters should be left to professionals to solve. Hinata is that professional. Kuroto has to admit that Orochimaru is indeed a genius in the truest sense. The science and technology of the ninja world may limit some of Orochimaru's research to become reality, but it can't stop his genius ideas. Rog didn't know what inspiration Hinata got from Orochimaru's research report, but after reading the report, Hinata didn't say anything and took several tubes of blood from his body, and then drove him out of the laboratory. From that day on, Hinata locked herself in the laboratory. It wasn't until more than half a month later that she came to the Hokage's office and appeared in front of Rog again. Byakugan, open. After Hinata came to the Hokage's office with a small silver-white suitcase, she didn't say anything and opened her Byakugan in front of Rog. She actually succeeded? Looking at Hinata with blue veins popping out of her eyes, Rog froze for a moment, then put down the magic book in his hand and looked at Hinata in disbelief. He didn't know why, but he felt that Hinata seemed to be a little different now. Not because of the Byakugan, but because her whole person was different. How did you do it? Rog asked curiously. The Byakugan transplant can't be 100% perfect. So I made myself a new body, a body that originally had the Byakugan, completely isolated the problem of the transplant rejection and chakra. At this time, Hinata still had the same pure and gentle appearance, and her tone was as flat as ever. But what came out of her mouth was not ordinary at all. Did he make a new body for himself? Hinata's words made Rog involuntarily think of the S-class forbidden jutsu invented by Orochimaru, living corpse reincarnation. By transferring one's spirit to another's body, one can obtain eternal life and obtain others' Kei-Genkai. Although Hinata's approach is not the same as Orochimaru's, the principle is the same. She can perfectly inherit others' Kei-Genkai by changing her body. This solution is indeed Orochimaru's style. Looking at Hinata, whose appearance hasn't changed, but she has changed her body, Rog asked a question that he is more concerned about at the moment. What about your previous body? It was destroyed. Hinata said lightly, as if what she was dealing with was not her own body at all, but an ordinary item that can be seen everywhere. Don't tell anyone that you have changed your body again, and don't tell anyone that you can change your body at any time. Except for you and me, I don't want a third person to know about this. After a few seconds of silence, Rog solemnly said to Hinata. Okay, a gentle smile appeared on Hinata's face. After suppressing some bad premonitions in his heart, Rog pointed to the suitcase in Hinata's hand and continued to ask, "What are you holding in your hand?" The relevant information and cultivation method of Orochimaru's S-class forbidden jutsu, living corpse reincarnation. Hinata's expression and tone didn't change, but Rog was stunned after hearing her words. How is this possible? I just gave her a research report of Orochimaru. How could she have developed the cultivation method of living corpse reincarnation? Chapter 522. Since Hinata had a real body and chakra, Rog found that he couldn't understand her anymore. Her ninjutsu cultivation talent is beyond common sense, and her ninjutsu research and development ability is like a cheat. Compared to him, Hinata is more like a traveler with a system. What's wrong with this world? Can it still be good? After suppressing the shock in his heart, Rog took a few deep breaths, and then slowly said, "Show me the information about living corpse reincarnation." After hearing Rog's words, Hinata didn't hesitate and handed him the suitcase containing the information about living corpse reincarnation. Opening the suitcase, Rog took out the neatly arranged information inside and browsed it carefully. Although he has never practiced living corpse reincarnation, and he didn't even understand this S-class forbidden technique in detail on the system's exchange page. However, with his previous memory and his understanding of ninjutsu, he quickly judged the feasibility of the information. Living corpse reincarnation is one of the ultimate ninjutsu developed by Orochimaru himself. After years of human experiments, Orochimaru developed this dark forbidden technique that represents eternal life. By transferring one's spirit to another person's body, one can get rid of the shackles brought about by one's lifespan and achieve immortality in another sense. Although this is a very cruel dark forbidden technique, Kuroda has to admit that living corpse reincarnation is a genius work, an ultimate ninjutsu that can be said to break the laws of nature. The more he browsed the cultivation information of living corpse reincarnation, the more shocked Rog was by Hinata's ninjutsu research and development ability. Just based on a few words mentioned in the report of Orochimaru's Sharingan and Byakugan transplant, Hinata deduced the key technology of living corpse reincarnation and successfully transferred her spirit to a new body. And unlike the original living corpse reincarnation developed by Orochimaru, the living corpse reincarnation developed by Hinata perfectly solves the problem of weakness before and after reincarnation, as well as the problem of rejection between the spirit and the reincarnation vessel. Although both are reincarnated into a new vessel, Orochimaru's method is to reincarnate into another person's body, while Hinata's method is to reincarnate into a new body created by herself. Because the new body is also created by herself, Hinata can achieve perfect reincarnation that even Orochimaru can't do. Amazing, truly amazing. Rog can be regarded as a well-informed ninja, but after reading the information given by Hinata, he had to admit that compared to Hinata, his ability to develop ninjutsu is nothing. After confirming this, the way he looked at Hinata became a bit strange. I've struck gold. I've struck gold this time. Rog originally just wanted to satisfy Hinata's desire to have a body, but he didn't expect that Hinata, who has a body and chakra, would have such amazing talent in ninjutsu. At this moment, Hinata was no longer a personal assistant in his eyes, nor a substitute for someone, but a treasure that symbolizes all the mysteries of ninjutsu. It's a pity that you only have fire and lightning chakra, otherwise. Before Rog finished speaking, Hinata raised her right hand and summoned a light blue chakra. No, I have fire and lightning chakra in my previous body. Now, I have all the attributes of chakra, just like you. Looking at the chakra burning like a flame in Hinata's right hand, Rog reacted. No wonder she deliberately took several tubes of blood from my body before. It turned out that she considered this problem early. I don't want to be a transmigrator, I don't deserve it. Not only was his ability to develop ninjutsu completely crushed, but now even the advantage of chakra given by the system is gone. In addition to the Kekkei Genkai ninjutsu, I will give you all the ninjutsu cultivation methods later. First, you should understand the characteristics of the 3 types of chakra. After you master these, I will give you a prototype of ninjutsu that is still in the conceptual stage. You can see if you can develop all these ninjutsu. Although he said this, in fact, the so-called prototype of ninjutsu that is still in the conceptual stage in Rog's mouth is the ninjutsu that he hasn't exchanged from the system yet. With a master of ninjutsu like Hinata, he doesn't need to waste ninjutsu at all. Okay, for Rog's arrangement, Hinata didn't have any dissatisfaction. Instead, she showed a happy expression. In the eyes of others, Rog was squeezing Hinata, but Hinata herself didn't think so. In her view, this was Rog's way of showing that he needed her. Rog's original plan was to wait for Hinata to get the Byakugan, then return to Earth and begin to prepare for his tree planting trip. However, after knowing that Hinata has a cheat-like ability to develop ninjutsu, the tree planting plan was directly postponed by him. Planting the sacred tree is a long-term task, and it doesn't have much impact whether it starts earlier or later. Time flies, and in a blink of an eye, more than half a year passed. In this half a year, Rog's ninjutsu library was filled at an amazing speed. In addition to practicing the ninjutsu developed by Hinata, he didn't forget to continue to improve his sage body, and from time to time, he would return to Earth to do some commissions to accumulate some ninjutsu. If no one disturbed him, he wouldn't mind continuing to live on Tatooine with Hinata, making himself a ninjutsu professor, like the third Hokage Sarutobi, proficient in all ninjutsu in Konoha. However, the happy days were short-lived. When the Konoha hidden village had just ushered in the first light of a new day, the voice of Nr. 3 suddenly sounded in Rog's bedroom. Hokage-sama, hey. 2 just sent a message. The alien plant you are looking for has been found. Unlike the previous voice, Nr. 3 is not using Hinata's voice now, but an electronically synthesized female voice. After Hinata had a real body, the voice of Nr. 2 and Nr. 3 were modified by Hinata into a mechanically synthesized voice similar to Friday. Got it, prepare breakfast for me, I'll go back later. As Rog's voice sounded, the lights in the bedroom slowly lit up, and the huge floor-to-ceiling window also returned from the smart screen state to the transparent state, allowing the morning light to shine into the bedroom. Do you want to go back together? Or do you want to stay here? Rog rubbed his eyes that haven't fully opened and said to Hinata, who was next to him with her smooth shoulders exposed from the quilt. Let's go back together, I haven't been back for a long time. After saying that, Hinata tried to get up from the bed, but as soon as she got up, her brows wrinkled involuntarily. You're pressing my hair again. Chapter 523. Earth, Missouri, in a forest near a small town. Is this the plant clone of the planet called Igo you mentioned before? Looking at the strange plant in front of her, whose outer layer is like a hollow coral, and the bottom is wrapped with a fruit that exudes a faint blue light, Hinata asked Rog in confusion. Yes, this is Igo's plant clone. Although Rog didn't remember what Igo's plant clone looked like before, after seeing this alien plant that is obviously different from the style of the Earth, he can be 100% sure that this is Igo's plant clone left on the Earth. Although some plants on the Earth also look like alien species, in this plant clone he perceived natural energy that doesn't belong to the Earth at all. A strange natural energy that contains strong vitality. Then do we need to get this plant back to Konoha's headquarters? Wearing a sleeveless lavender shirt and black shorts, Hinata squatted down and tentatively stretched out her right hand towards Igo's plant clone. Don't touch it, leave it here first, it's not time to deal with it yet. Igo left his plant clone on thousands of planets, trying to erode the entire planet through these plant clones, and then integrate himself with thousands of planets, using the great life expansion of thousands of planets to achieve the ultimate eternity. In terms of planning, Igo's plan is feasible, and he has enough lifespan and energy to implement this extremely complicated plan. Except for the fact that he can't complete this plan with his own energy, there is no problem with his life expansion plan. However, he thought of a good solution. Since he can't provide enough energy by himself, he will create descendants with the same Kami's energy as himself and complete this life expansion plan with his descendants. In order to do this, he began to combine with different races, grafting his DNA to them, trying to create descendants with the same Kami's energy as himself. He left different descendants on different planets and asked Yondu to bring his descendants to his original planet. If everything developed according to normal circumstances, Igo should have gotten a descendant who inherited his Kami's energy 10 or 20 years ago. However, by chance, Yondu discovered the truth that Igo had killed those worthless descendants, so he left Igo, an Earthling descendant, in the Marauder team. Star-Lord Peter Quill is the only descendant who inherited Igo's heavenly energy. But so far, neither Igo, Yondu, nor Peter have discovered this. The reason why Rog was so certain of this was because the Igo clone in front of him was the best proof. If Igor had gotten Star-Lord, this clone would have already begun to erode the Earth, instead of remaining in the state of a seedling as it is now. Inform number 2 to arrange for people to guard this area. Without my permission, no one is allowed to enter. After saying that, Rog mobilized the chakra in his body and used the wood escape technique. As chakra gushed out, a square wooden house that was several square meters in size quickly took shape, completely enveloping Igo's doppelganger. After doing all this, Rog opened the portal and returned to Konoha's headquarters with Hinata. "Get ready, I may go to the universe with you in a few days. If you have anything you want to bring, just put it in your channeling scroll." When Konoha Hidden Village developed ninjutsu, Hinata did not fall behind in the practice of ninjutsu. In addition to ninjutsu such as would release ninjutsu, Sharingan Dojutsu, Flying Thor and King Kong Seal, she basically knows all the other ninjutsu that Rog knows. Summoning technique is one of them. The only difference is that the summon scroll used by Hinata was not exchanged from the system, but she wrote it herself according to the summoning technique. "Okay, no problem." After hearing that there were only two people acting together with Rog, Hinata's face showed a gentle smile like the warm sun in winter. The reason why she wanted to have her own body was to be able to perform missions with Rog, instead of watching Rog team up with others and leave Konoha. After instructing Hinata, Rog did not hesitate and opened the portal again. A few seconds later, he arrived at Asgard's Golden Palace. To be precise, it was Thor's meeting hall. After a few words with Thor, he successfully got the exact coordinates of the planet Igo from Thor. With Asgard's intelligence ability, it is not a big problem to find the specific location of Igo. What's more, it has been almost a year since Rog last came to Asgard. When he was about to return to Earth, Thor suddenly told him about Hela. Hela is now the queen of Muspelheim and Jotunheim. Now, she is leading the Frost Giants and the Flame Giants to conquer Warnerheim. Thor's words made Rog, who was about to enter the portal, stop. After thinking about it seriously for more than 10 seconds, he slowly said, "No matter what you want to do at that time, if you need help, you can let Heimdall contact me at any time." After speaking, he walked into the portal and returned to Konoha's headquarters. The family conflict between Thor and Hela, if nothing unexpected happens, will not be resolved in a short time. Unless one of them takes the initiative to admit defeat, their family conflict will sooner or later manifest in the form of war. On the second day after returning to Konoha's headquarters, Rog took Hinata to the Golden Jack, which had been replaced with the battleship's main system, and began to go to Xander. Before going to the planet Igo, he still has some small preparations to do. For example, finding Igo's descendant, Star-Lord Peter Quill. Although Konoha doesn't have much power in the universe, Rog himself still has some friends in the universe. After setting the destination of the voyage to Xander, he opened the system's exchange page and swiped to the page with the Tree Sapling of God. Tree Sapling of God, exchange price, 500 ninja coins. Although in the past 6 months, he and Hinata lived in the small world of two people in Konoha Hidden Village, he is not short of ninja coins now. He now has 625 unspent ninja coins, and as long as he wants, he can exchange Tree Sapling of God at any time. However, he did not do so now because he still has a Mangekyo Dojutsu that he wants to exchange. Mangekyo Dojutsu, Kodo Amitsukami. Chapter 524. Ordinary ninjutsu won't work well against an enemy of Igo's size. Even if Rog can go deep inside the planet and find Igo's core, he can't kill him. If Igo dies, the planet will also be destroyed, and planting the god tree will naturally become a delusion. Therefore, he needs to make Igo obediently cooperate with him without killing him, so as to achieve the purpose of planting the god tree on Igo. Although there are many planets in the universe, no planet is more suitable for planting the god tree than Igo. Earth and Asgard are also good choices, but they are not in Rog's first choice. As a self-conscious planet, Igo will certainly not agree with Rog to plant the god tree on him. If the god tree wants to mature, it needs to eat the energy of all the creatures on the planet to bear the chakra fruit. For the planet, this is nourishing the god tree with its own life. As long as Igo still has the most basic sense, it is impossible for him to agree with Rog's plan. However, Rog didn't expect Igo to agree with his plan from the beginning because he intended to use Kodo Amitsukami, which has the strongest genjutsu, to forcibly modify Igo's consciousness. Kodo Amitsukami, the dojutsu awakened by Uchiha Shirsue's Manjikyu Sharingan. With his current strength, Rog is 80% sure that Kotoamatsukami will work on Igo. The only problem is that the exchange price given by the system is a bit expensive. Manjikyu Sharingan Dojutsu, left eye. Kotoamatsukami, exchange price, 300 ninja coins. The system doesn't support any physical Sharingan exchange, but the system didn't completely block Rog's path of having other Manjikyu Sharingan Dojutsu. As long as he is willing to spend 300 ninja coins, the system can add Kotoamatsukami to his Manjikyu Sharingan left eye. In addition to the left eye, the system also gave other additional dojutsu. Kamui, Amaterasu, Kagutsuki, Ninja Tool Control, Transcription Seal. If Rog can save enough ninja coins, he can add these dojutsu to his eyes one by one, making himself the ninja with the most Manjikyu Sharingan dojutsu. Rog fantasized about this beautiful future, but he didn't do it. The reason was simple: poverty. In order to save up the 500 ninja coins needed to exchange for the sacred tree sapling, he almost tried all the commissions on the commission website that could be judged by the system, and then he accumulated the number of ninja coins he had to 625. The heavenly tree saplings cost 500 ninja coins, and Kotoamatsukami cost 300 ninja coins. If he wants his heavenly tree planting plan to be carried out smoothly, he will need to save 175 ninja coins. He had basically done all the commissions that could be done on Earth. In that case, it's time to expand the fourth Hokage's commission business in the universe. As for whether or not he could receive enough commissions in the universe, he wasn't worried at all. No matter what was said, he was the fourth Hokage who had defeated Ronin the Accuser twice. He was also the fourth Hokage who had fought to a draw with the crazy Titan Thanos. With his current fame, as long as he wanted to, there was absolutely no need to worry about the source of the commission. This was also the main reason why he did not directly teleport to Xander but instead took the Golden Jack to Xander. The dignified fourth Hokage is carrying out a mission in the universe. How can he not have a powerful enough battleship? This is not only a matter of face, but also a symbol of strength. After all, not everyone can treat the main battleship of the Carry Empire as a private vehicle. When Rog and Hinata took the Golden Jack to Xander, a fierce space chase was taking place in the universe near the Supreme Star. What the hell were you thinking? Why did you steal their energy batteries? Star-Lord, who was controlling the Milano to maneuver and evade, shouted at Rocket sitting in the right pilot seat. Dude, those batteries are really easy to steal. Rocket was unmoved as he explained. He didn't feel that his theft was excessive. Is this your excuse? Gamera, sitting behind Rocket, said disdainfully. Come on, you also saw the High Priest's arrogant look. I was teaching him a lesson. Rocket found a very suitable reason for his behavior. But in the next second, he heard the ridicule from Star-Lord. I didn't expect your motives to be so selfless. It's a pity that those Supreme Star didn't appreciate your kindness and wanted to kill us. Whether it was Star-Lord or Rocket, neither of them took the pursuit of the Supreme Star too seriously at this time. Star-Lord, Rocket, Gamera, Groot, Drax the Destroyer, they were originally unrelated, but in the end, they formed the Milky Way Awkward Dance Troupe in Roger's memory. Although the reason for forming the team was completely different from what he remembered, fate still connected the five of them together, allowing the Guardian of the Galaxy to appear smoothly in this world. At this time, Rog did not know that Star-Lord and others had formed the Guardian of the Galaxy, let alone that they were now being chased by the Supreme Star's unmanned fleet. Now, he is enjoying a Chinese lunch carefully made by Hinata. Although Hinata's current dress is very Japanese, Rog did not ask her to make traditional Japanese food, but asked her to make Chinese food that is more in line with her own taste. Even if it's cosplay, there is no need to imitate all aspects of life. In the area of food, he is still quite picky. As a young man who grew up in a foodie country, he has no interest in Japanese cuisine such as sushi and ramen. This is not a matter of contempt, it's just pure disinterest. After enjoying the Chinese lunch carefully prepared by Hinata, Rog tested Hinata's ninjutsu and taijutsu's actual combat ability in the practice room on the battleship. The results of the test were very satisfactory. Except for the fact that the amount of chakra is not particularly large, Hinata can be regarded as having no shortcomings. Ninjutsu, genjutsu, taijutsu, all of them. Her hand seals are even faster than him. If it weren't for the existence of Sage Body, Sharingan, Mokutan, and other cheats, Rog wouldn't dare to say that he could win against Hinata under the same conditions. Through this exchange, he once again came to a conclusion that made him feel helpless. Compared to him, Hinata was more like a transmigrator with a cheat code. Although in this ninja battle, there is no way for him to win against Hinata. However, on another battlefield, he was an undeniably invincible existence. Don't ask so many reasons, just ask that Sage Body is awesome. In this leisurely time, the Golden Jack spent 3 days that were completely out of line with its performance before it finally arrived near Xander through an interstellar jump. Chapter 525. Xander, the outskirts of Halden City, the secret base of the Rope Hunters. Rog didn't let the Golden Jack directly enter Xander's universe. Instead, he parked the Golden Jack near Xander and opened a portal to the Slave Hunters' secret base disguised as a farm. He didn't hide his arrival. Not long after he walked out of the portal with Hinata, he saw a familiar face. Jeros, the young Xander who used to deliver food to Hulk and was eager to become a real slave hunter. Compared to before, Jeros, who was now an official slave hunter, was no longer as immature as before. He looked very capable, and there was a conspicuous scar on his face. Oh, Rog-sama? Although the last time he saw Rog was almost 2 years ago. But Jeros still recognized Rog at a glance, and a look of shock appeared on his face. Inform your deputy leader Noah to return to Xander immediately. Tell him that I want to see him. Looking at Jeros, who had a completely different image, Rog said calmly. Okay, I'll inform the leader right away. Jeros replied with the same respectful tone that he used to speak to Noah. Although he didn't know why Rog suddenly came to Xander, there was one thing he knew very well, that is, Rog was very strong, very strong. Since Noah returned to the slave hunters and personally told them about Rog's invincible battle with Ronin on Soccer, the slave hunters knew that Rog was an existence they absolutely couldn't afford to provoke. In addition, the slave hunters knew that their current leader, Noah, had a 3-year agreement with Rog. A year ago, after the previous leader of the slave hunters unfortunately died, Noah was able to become the leader among several deputy leaders. This had a lot to do with Rog. Although Noah looked like a burly man, he had a lot of thoughts in his mind. By taking advantage of the situation, he easily won the competition for the position of leader of the rope trappers. Without any effort, he became the current leader of the rope trappers. Prepare a comfortable hover car and a communicator for me, I'm going to Halden City. Although he came to the secret base of the rope hunters, Rog didn't intend to live in the base. From his point of view, Halden City didn't have anything particularly worth visiting. But the problem is that he didn't come here alone. This was Hinata's first trip to another planet in the truest sense. In order to give Hinata good memories, he didn't mind accompanying her to Halden City and let her experience the local customs of Xander. Accompanying a woman to go shopping was a painful thing for many men. However, if one had enough time and money, it was a very pleasant thing to go shopping with the woman one liked. If Rog remembered correctly, his new star card still has more than 400 million new star coins, enough for him and Hinata to squander in Halden City. Riding the exclusive hovercar of the slave hunters, Rog and Hinata began to go to Halden City dozens of kilometers away. While Rog and Hinata were heading to Halden City, Noah, somewhere in space, received a message from Jeros. Why is he here? It's only been 2 years, and it's not the agreed deadline yet. Although he was already the leader of the rope hunters, Noah still didn't dare to have any thoughts of violating the agreement. Thinking of the last scene of his meeting with Rog, he unconsciously touched his neck. Until now, Noah didn't know the use of the flying Thor technique left on his neck by Rog. However, he didn't intend to use his life to verify this point. Give up the capture mission and return to Xander immediately. Noah, sitting in the commander's seat, issued the latest order. Giving up the capture mission temporarily is not common in the history of the slave hunters. However, since the person who issued this order was Noah, the other members of the slave hunters certainly didn't have any objections. It didn't take long for the slave hunters' battleship to set the latest destination and headed towards the nearest interstellar jump point. The famous red light district planet, a camp on Xianxia. It seems that we came to the wrong place at this time. A middle-aged man who looked completely different from an earthling said to a blue-skinned predator with red metal fins on his head. This blue-skinned predator was none other than Yandu. After speaking, the man didn't wait for Yandu's answer and turned around with his subordinates. "Sir." As soon as the man turned around, the waitress in the camp hurriedly chased after him, trying to make him stay. "There are 100 factions in the Predators, and you lost the remaining 99 in order to serve one of them." The man didn't pay any attention to the waitress urging him to stay and walked out without slowing down. "Please, sir, don't go." The waitress grabbed the man and said quickly, "Don't touch me." The macho man pushed away the waitress's hand on his chest with dissatisfaction. "Please." The waitress who was pushed away continued to plead. Looking at the man walking further and further away, Yandu smashed the wine bottle in his hand and roared loudly, "Staka, go to hell, I don't care what you think of me." "Then why are you following us?" After hearing Yandu's roar, Staka replied angrily and turned to walk towards Yandu. "Because you have to listen to me." Yandu also walked quickly towards the man. "I don't need to listen to anything, you betrayed your principles. Predators don't buy or sell children." Although Staka tried to control his anger, he showed an amazing oppressive force, as if he was a terrifying beast on the verge of going berserk. "I told you, I don't know what's going on." Staka's momentum was amazing, but Yandu didn't fall behind at all and said loudly, "You don't know because you don't want to know, because you're relying on this to get rich," Staka replied mockingly. Yandu tugged at his shirt, revealing the Marauder logo on his clothes. "I demand a place. I'll wear the flame symbol like you. Although you're wearing the same clothes as us, don't expect to hear the freedom horn after you die. Augur's brilliance will never shine at your funeral. If you think that exiling you will make me happy, then you're wrong, you've hurt all of our hearts." Staka grabbed Yandu's clothes and said in a calm tone that was completely different from before. After that, Staka ignored Yandu, who had obviously fallen into depression, and left the camp with his subordinates without looking back. Chapter 526. What's the shopping style of a nouveau riche? That's to only buy the most expensive things, not the best. After coming to the bustling shopping center of Halton City, Hinata awakened her innate shopping instincts without a teacher. Rog not only didn't express any dissatisfaction with Hinata's sweeping shopping, but he also used practical actions to prove what it means to swipe my card. In less than half an hour, Hinata became the most popular female customer in the shopping center, and waiters of all colors surrounded her like bees. Roger didn't interfere with Hinata's crazy sweep. He just quietly finished the work and swiped his card. The latest beauty products, buy the most expensive jewelry, buy the most famous clothes and dresses, buy. At this time, Rog was like a ruthless card swiping machine, constantly repeating the action of swiping his card and leaving the delivery address to the shop assistant. At first, he didn't pay too much attention to what Hinata bought. But when Hinata's shopping talent was completely awakened, he noticed that something was wrong. Sexy underwear. This is not in line with the style of Earth. But I like it. Baby products. Was this thing really useful? Men's healthcare products. This is a bit too much, right? As Hinata's shopping gradually developed into a field that wasn't suitable for children, Roger found that those young and beautiful waitresses with good figures were looking at him strangely. This wasn't the most embarrassing problem. The most embarrassing thing was that as more and more onlookers gathered, some people began to recognize him as the rumored fourth Hokage. Xander and the Carey Empire were old enemies, especially after the war restarted. The people of Xander liked to hear the news of the Carey Empire being defeated more and more. When it came to making the Kree Empire suffer, the fourth Hokage, who had defeated Luo Nan, the Accuser, twice, was one of them. When the scene began to get out of control, Rog squeezed the waiters around Hinata and whispered to Hinata, "That's it for today, let's continue when we reach Nova City." After saying that, Rog pulled Hinata's right hand, used chakra to isolate the nearby waiters, and used quantum transmission to return to the hotel suite they booked before. Just like the idea of only buying the most expensive shopping, the hotel they are now staying in is also the most expensive hotel in Halton City, the Holy Light Hotel. When they came to Halton City with Natasha, they stayed in this hotel. Because the impression they left last time was quite good, Rog chose this hotel this time. As for the identification required for check-in, in ordinary genjutsu was easily done. Not long after they returned to the hotel suite, Rog's communicator rang. "Sen, this is Noah. I'm back in Halton City. I don't know when it's convenient for you to meet." Although Noah tried his best to make his tone sound calm and gentle, his rough voice was indeed not suitable for this kind of thing. This would give people the impression that he was holding his throat as he spoke. "I'll wait for you at the Holy Light Hotel's lounge." After saying that, Rog hung up the communicator and looked at Hinata next to him. "The things you bought will be delivered later. You can experience the feeling of opening a package. I'm going to the hotel's lounge to talk about something, and I'll come back after that." After pinching Hinata's cheeks, Rog left the room with the communicator and went to the hotel's lounge. After coming to the lounge, he found a quiet place by the window, ordered a bottle of the most expensive liquor, and patiently waited for Noah's arrival. As a vigorous warrior, Noah didn't let Rog wait for too long. In less than 10 minutes, Noah, who was wearing a black combat suit, arrived in front of him. Noah said softly in a respectful tone and bowed slightly to Rog. Looking at Noah, who didn't change much, Rog pointed to the opposite seat and said, "Thank you." After saying that, Noah adjusted his combat suit and sat down with his upper body straightened. "How is the search for the giant statue clan?" After taking a sip of the liquor in the crystal glass, Rog asked in a relaxed tone. "I haven't found any other targets besides Groot." Noah doesn't know if it's his illusion, but he always felt that the current Rog is very different from before. If the previous Rog was a majestic mountain towering into the clouds, then the current Rog is a vast ocean that stretches as far as the eye can see. Although the pressure shown is not as amazing as before, it gives people a more unfathomable feeling. If not, then forget it. Rog wasn't surprised by Noah's answer. The Treant Groot was most likely the last member of the Flower God Colossus clan. Regarding this, he has been mentally prepared for a long time. Otherwise, the collector Talia Divan, who is famous for his hobby of collecting, would not have proposed to collect Groot's body. "I'm really sorry that I couldn't fulfill your request." Noah didn't expect that Rog would directly give up the plan to capture the giant statue clan. This development was a bit beyond his expectations. Before he returned to Xander, he had been thinking about how to explain to Rog why they hadn't captured any Flower God Colossus clansmen yet. "Everything can't be too forced. Since I can't find them, it means that I have no fate with the giant statue clan for the time being." Rog explained casually, and then continued, "Although you don't have to look for the giant statue clan for the time being, I hope you can help me find 2 people. After hearing Rog's words, Noah swallowed his saliva unconsciously and asked slowly, "Which 2 people?" "Predator Yondu Udanta and Star-Lord Peter Quill." "Predator? Star-Lord?" Noah thought that Rog wanted him to look for some weird people again, but he didn't expect that he was looking for predators. As a slave catcher wandering in the gray area, Noah is no stranger to predators, and he even knows them very well. After all, just like the slave catchers, the raiders were members of the gray area. He is no stranger to predators, but he has no impression of Star-Lord Peter Quill. Since he has never heard of him, he can basically rule out that he is a powerful existence. If this Star-Lord is not easy to find, you can inquire about Thanos' adopted daughter Gamora. Maybe find out if there is a bounty hunter team called Guardian of the Galaxy. Rog saw the puzzlement on Noah's face and provided him with an additional idea. Chapter 527. Thanos' adopted daughter, Gamora? After hearing Rog's hint, Noah was taken aback. He is no stranger to Gamora. In the arena of soccer, he had seen this top assassin known as the most dangerous woman in the universe. Although Gamora did not really fight with Hulk at that time, Gamora still left a very deep impression on him. After all, to some extent, Thanos led the army to attack Soccer in order to rescue Gamora from Gao Tianzuan's hands. It's just that he couldn't understand how Gamora got involved with the so-called Star-Lord. Although his mind was full of questions, he still quickly gave a reply. Okay, I'll arrange for someone to look for Predator Yondu and Star-Lord right away. After handing over the task of finding Yondu and Star-Lord to Noah, Rog returned to the hotel suite. Then, he saw Hinata trying on sexy underwear in the bedroom. At noon the next day, after tasting a luxurious Xander lunch with Hinata, Rog left Halden City with Hinata and opened the portal to Xander's capital, New Star City. Of course, the luxury floating vehicle that belonged to the slaver leader was also taken away by him. Before leaving Halden City, Rog specifically informed Noah and asked Noah to go to New Star City to find him after he had news. Compared with the cities on Earth, Halden City is already a futuristic city that only appears in science fiction imagination. But compared with the capital, New Star City, Halden City looks a bit ordinary. After arriving at New Star City, Rog did not immediately accompany Hinata to go shopping, but contacted Military Council Speaker Morgan Gardner, whose right hand had been cut off by him. Although Morgan Gardner's strength is not very good, he is only at the level of an ordinary centurion in the New Star Corps. But his identity and power can allow Rog to better carry out his own commission business. Although some bloody things happened when the two of them first met, this will not affect their next cooperation in the slightest. In the face of common interests, there are no eternal enemies. After using the communicator provided by the slave hunters to dial Morgan Gardner's private number, Rog told him about his plan to start a commission business on Xander. After thinking for only 10 seconds, Morgan Gardner agreed to Rog's request to use his channels to carry out the commission. After reaching a preliminary cooperation agreement, Rog soon began his journey of farming ninja coins on Xander. Assassinate the frontline commander of the Kree Empire, escort the important resources of the New Star Army, recapture the key areas occupied by the Kree Empire. Because the war was at a stalemate, most of the commissions Rog received were related to the war. Of course, there were also assassination commissions to help Morgan Gardner deal with his political enemies. As a qualified politician, Morgan Gardner didn't let go of the opportunity to borrow Rog's reputation and wantonly publicize that he had reached a friendly and solid cooperative relationship with the fourth Hokage. Rog didn't take Morgan Gardner's little tricks to heart. Although this will make him look a bit like a mercenary, but for the sake of the constant income of ninja coins, he tolerated Morgan Gardner's little tricks. It has to be said that the commission rate of the new map is relatively high. In only a week, Rog successfully pulled 205 ninja coins from Morgan Gardner, making the number of ninja coins in his possession reach 830. After getting enough ninja coins, Rog temporarily suspended the cooperation with Morgan Gardner and focused on the sacred tree planting plan. Bright starry sky. Hotel, Supreme Suite. While Hinata was taking a bath, Rog, who was lying on the bed, opened the system's exchange page and found the exchange icon symbolizing the left eye, Kodo Amitsukami. Mangekyo Dojutsu, left eye, Kodo Amitsukami, exchange price, 300 ninja coins. Without any hesitation, Rog directly chose to exchange. When the golden icon on the exchange page disappeared, a unique Mangekyo eye power strangely appeared in his left eye. With the appearance of this eye power, the Mangekyo Sharingan in his left eye was forcibly opened, and the triangular arc dart pattern of the Mangekyo quickly rotated. In a few seconds, the Mangekyo pattern in his left eye changed from the triangular arc dart pattern to the sharper four-cornered dart pattern. Mangekyo Dojutsu, Kodo Amitsukami. When the four-cornered dart pattern in his left eye stopped selecting, the relevant information of Kodo Amitsukami appeared in his mind. Unknowingly, it can manipulate others at will and permanently change their minds. Like Tsukuyami, Kodoamatsukami is an ultimate illusion derived from the hypnotic ability of the Sharingan to the extreme. However, Tsukuyami and Kodoamatsukami chose different evolution directions and presentation methods. Tsukuyami is to inflict the greatest mental damage to the enemy in a short period of time and completely defeat the enemy by destroying their mental state. Although Kodoamatsukami looked relatively gentle, in fact, Kodoamatsukami was as difficult to resist as Tsukuyami. The tricky part about Tsukuyami was that when the enemy sensed Tsukuyami, they would already be deep in Tsukuyami's world. And the tricky part about Kodoamatsukami was that the enemy couldn't sense that they had been hit by Kodoamatsukami. The thoughts injected by Kodoamatsukami would silently produce effects in the most secretive manner, making the enemy mistakenly believe that it was his true thoughts and continue to carry them out without any hesitation. After browsing through the information that appeared in his mind in detail, Rog deactivated the Mangekyo Sharingan that had automatically activated. Kodoamatsukami's effects were indeed very powerful, but its flaws were also very obvious. Unlike Tsukuyami, who could use it as many times as she wanted as long as she had sufficient mental strength, Kodoamatsukami's cooldown time was terrifying. Rog had just done some calculations. With his current immortal body development and strength, he needed an entire week's cooldown time to use Kodoamatsukami once. With a week-long cooldown time, it was destined that Kodoamatsukami couldn't be used as a conventional combat method. It could only be used as a trump card at critical moments. Apart from the fact that Kodoamatsukami's cooldown time exceeded his expectations, he also discovered something particularly helpless. If he didn't remember wrongly, Konoha's Pot King Danzo, who had transplanted Hashirama's cells, only had a cooldown time of a few hours for using Kodoamatsukami. Danzo had only transplanted Hashirama's cells, but he could reduce the cooldown time to a few hours. As for him, who had Hashirama's immortal body, he had to cool down for a week to use Kodoamatsukami. Was the difference between an 85% immortal body and a 100% immortal body that huge? Chapter 528. Bright Starry Sky Hotel. In the living room of the Supreme Suite where Rog lives. Mr. Rog, this is the latest news about Predator Yondu, Star-Lord, and others. Please take a look. Unlike the last time they met, Noah was not wearing the black combat uniform of the slave hunters this time. Instead, he was wearing an expensive black formal suit. Although the clothes are very expensive because of his temperament and body shape, Noah, who is wearing a formal suit, does not look like a guest who will stay in the hotel. Instead, he looks like a bodyguard of a guest in the hotel. After taking the ultra-thin electronic display screen that Noah handed over, Rog browsed the contents on it. After more than a week of hard work, the slave hunters successfully found the specific whereabouts of Yondu and Star-Lord. According to the intelligence, the Guardian of the Galaxy formed by Star-Lord and others are repairing the severely damaged Milano on planet Bakht at this time. Predator Yondu, on the other hand, received a commission from the Supreme High Priest to capture Star-Lord and others in the camp of the Red Light District planet Contra La a week ago. So now, the Predators led by Yondu are also searching for Star-Lord and others everywhere. After knowing this news, Noah felt that he finally understood why Rog was looking for Yondu and Star-Lord. Glancing at Noah, who thought he had seen through everything, Rog put down the electronic display screen in his hand and said slowly, "From now on, you don't owe me anything, you can leave now. By the way, your hover car is now in the underground parking lot of the hotel. You can drive it away directly later." Noah thought that Rog would continue to arrange some tasks for him, so that the slave hunters could borrow his reputation during this period. As a result, he didn't expect that Rog would directly ask him to leave. This development was completely out of his expectations. "Mr. Roger, if you need to capture Yondu and Star-Lord, the slave hunters can help you capture them directly. You don't need to do it yourself, nor do you need to spend any money." After a few seconds of silence, Noah offered to help for free. "Catch them? Thank you for your kindness, but I don't plan to catch them." Although Noah did not say it explicitly, Rog could tell at a glance what he was up to. The chairman of the military council, Morgan Gardner, had taken the initiative to announce his partnership with Rog last week. After the frontline report was sent back to Xander, Rog had become the most sought-after person on Xander. There were countless people who wanted to establish a relationship with him or establish a partnership with him. Even now, in the hotel lobby, there was still a large group of people waiting for him to show up. After sending Noah away, Rog once again picked up the electronic display that recorded Yondu and Star-Lord. Bakht was a planet that wasn't very technologically advanced. It is not an easy task for Star-Lord and others to repair the damaged Milano on Bakht. At least for the time being, they would not be able to restore the Milano and leave planet Bakht. As he remembered, although Star-Lord and others formed the Guardian of the Galaxy, they were not a very well-behaved bounty team. This can be seen from the fact that they were hunted down by their former employer, Star Supreme. They completed the employer's commission and then stole the energy battery that the employer regarded as a treasure. For some reason, after seeing the reason why Star Supreme hunted down the Guardian of the Galaxy, Rog unconsciously recalled his former employer, Hand. Compared to that, his methods of dealing with his former employer, Hand, were much crueler than Star-Lord and others. Moreover, the method he used wasn't the kind of petty theft that couldn't be seen in public. Instead, he directly wiped out the entire Hand and completely took over their dragon bones. From this point of view, his behavior is worse than that of the Guardian of the Galaxy. In order to prevent Yondu from taking Star-Lord away in advance, or Star-Lord's biological father Igo from contacting Star-Lord in advance, not long after Noah left the hotel, Rog returned to the Golden Jack with Hinata and began to go to Bakht. Bakht in a forest. Damn it. I told you a long time ago, you should have completely severed your relationship with the raiders. While talking, Rocket held an energy rifle taller than him and shot wildly at the raiders who had completely surrounded them. I'm not a raider anymore, they have nothing to do with me. Facing Rocket's complaint, Star-Lord, who was holding an energy pistol in each hand, replied with dissatisfaction. Shut up, both of you. Gamera's voice sounded behind the two of them. Ha, come on, you space rats, ha, Drax the Destroyer style is always so distinctive. Not only did he not care about the encirclement of the raiders, but he ran directly towards the direction with the most enemies with 2 daggers in his hand. I am Groot. Behind Drax the Destroyer, there is Groot, who is 3 or 4 meters tall. Although Groot is the most conspicuous target, he is also the most difficult one to deal with on the forest's home ground. Unlike Star-Lord and others, Groot at this time is like a forest guardian. The trees growing wildly on his body either entangle, pierce, or whip those raiders who are wearing raider uniforms but are like miscellaneous mercenaries. Although Star-Lord and others only have 5 people, the combat power they broke out is no worse than the raider team led by Yondu, and they even had the upper hand for a while. As more and more raiders died and were injured, Yondu, the leader of the team, finally made his move. Yondu pulled open the leather trench coat on his body, revealing the brainwave-controlled flying arrow with a self-propelled mini high-speed engine and a diamond-shaped arrowhead hanging on his belt, and then he slowly whistled. With the sound of the whistle, the golden flying arrow hanging on Yondu's belt slowly flew up. Then, in the forest shrouded in the night, a flash of red light was drawn. The galloping flying arrow first hit the most conspicuous Groot, and like embroidery, it pierced Groot's hands back and forth. In less than 2 seconds, Groot's hands, which were completely made of wood, shattered and turned into broken pieces of wood that fell to the ground. The flying arrow that pierced Groot's hands did not stop at all and continued to attack Star-Lord and others. Under the terrifying speed of the flying arrow, Star-Lord and others quickly fell into an absolute disadvantage. Just as the golden flying arrow was about to pierce the rocket boots on Star-Lord's leg, a Carry Empire's main battleship appeared over the forest. Along with this battleship, there was also an irresistible voice. Everyone present, please give me face and stop this meaningless battle. You're tuning in to the Wandering Hero YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.